Hello, everyone. We are going to call to order the evening meeting for City Council for December 18th, starting at 6:30.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Members Flores, Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, and Witherspoon. Pledge of Allegiance.
Alrighty, we will please stand for a moment of silence and then a Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to take a moment to recognize the young man who lost his life yesterday in the city and the other one who is fighting for his life in the hospital. This is a sad time for the families that are currently experiencing this tragedy, so we just need to be mindful in our community of the tragedy around holidays. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to accept the minutes from the December 4th City Council meeting and bills for payment on December...
Order in the meeting, please. Silence unless you are speaking. Lori is trying to conduct the meeting. Thank you.
Bills for payment on December 20th, 27th, and January 3rd. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores.
We have no scheduled presentations this evening. Is there anyone here to speak on a repository sale? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on a repository sale tonight? Is there anyone here to speak on a repository sale? I'm hearing and seeing none. We will be moving on. I would ask the media to please line up on the left aisle facing the stage and citizens to line up on the right aisle to avoid confusion. Now, I am going to read the rules for citizens to be heard, and I hope that the audience can follow the rules or else you will be asked to be removed. Citizens to be heard. Any such person addressing council shall step up to the front of the podium, shall give their name and the municipality in which they live. Unless further time is granted by council, you shall limit your address to only 5 minutes. All remarks shall be addressed to council as a body and not to anyone thereof. No person other than a council member and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a member of council. Without the permission of the presiding officer, no question shall be asked of the council person except through the presiding officer. Reporting from official boards, commissions, and other bodies may be received, and also reading of written communications to council on any matter concerning city's business or any matter other than which council has control. Those are the rules of council. If you cannot respect the people who are speaking, you will get a warning 2 times before you are asked to be removed. So we will continue. You get 5 minutes. Please state your name clearly for the record and the municipality in which you live. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Cole Shenley, and I live in the city of Erie. I'm so tired. These last few weeks have been physically and emotionally taxing, not just for myself, but our entire community. It feels somewhat gauche to complain when yesterday multiple families were torn apart by senseless violence. My heart goes out to everyone affected. The problems Erie faces are multitude and many faceted. Tonight, there is a real opportunity to make some material progress that can help stabilize our community. 2 city council meetings ago, we could have calmly heard from Trump fans that were upset at Council President Flores' comments about 90% of MAGA supporters being racist. She may or may not have resigned from her post, but her opponents could have potentially built support in the court of public opinion. Anyone who watched that council meeting knows that didn't happen. What we saw instead was screaming, ranting, and aggression, led by Mr. and Mrs. Shank and Miss Hunter. Not that they themselves were doing the screaming. The Shanks were happy to sit back and sell some t-shirts to their supporters. While Miss Hunter sought to skew crime data in hopes of painting Erie as a fallen city, an urban hellhole needing a thorough ass-kicking by our police complement. And not much was said about why Jasmine made the comments in the first place, because her Puerto Rican heritage was trashed by Trump supporters, and she finally had enough of the hate. The groups I am a member of, Erie DSA and Erie County United, along with the Erie Spiritual Coalition, came out last meeting to speak about the needs for a Renter's Bill of Rights. DSA and ECU are community-oriented organizations made up of working-class Erieites. It's our working-class roots that drive the issues we fight for. It's our commitment to democracy that has our making group decisions on how to proceed forward. Unlike with the MAGA here tonight, we aren't led by grifters looking to make a buck off our pain. I don't think everyone who voted for Trump is a racist. I may strongly disagree with their choice, but I fully understand how in an economy too focused on the 1%, it can leave an opening for charlatans to take advantage of the suffering of the working class. But let's be clear, Trump, his acolytes, and his wealthy friends are not looking out for working class interests. It's doubtful we will hear Mr. Shank come up here and talk about housing insecurity. Throughout his tenure as a county council member, Mr. Shank was more interested in having his ego stroked and promoting his internet show than doing the hard job of governing. Let's remember that last year, when the man could have shown real solidarity with the striking workers of United Electrical, he hemmed and hawed during a speech he gave while chairman of county council. Socialists in DSA nationally were able to raise $9,000 for UE workers, ensuring their kids had clothes and school supplies last fall. I think Brian handed out popsicles. Erie needs a Renter's Bill of Rights. We need just cause protections for tenants. Working class members of our community should not need to put up GoFundMes to avoid evictions, especially not in the middle of the worst weather our county has seen in decades. Housing stability should never be a concern on one of our residents, but too often it's a roadblock to getting a person out of poverty. We desperately need local government to step up and make investments in human beings, not whatever economic bauble of the week is in the news. When you consider the Renters' Bill of Rights tonight, think of the progress you've made on this issue, the progress Councilman Nelson highlighted a couple of meetings ago, and then think about the work left to be done and how this ordinance gets us that much closer to a truly fair system for renters and landlords in the city of Erie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Art Leopold. I live in Mill Creek. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. Councilmen, councilwomen, so appreciate it, and let you know how proud I've been of the work that you've done this year, especially Madam President. You have done good work, and the whole city will benefit from it, and I so appreciate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, also, and the administration. I want to talk a little bit about a First Amendment. It's a right and a privilege that we all have. We all can use it. We ought to cherish it. I choose to use my First Amendment right to lift people up, to be mindful of the fact that everyone has an equal opportunity, and to build bridges among people. That's what I use my First Amendment right for. And I would encourage everyone to try to use it to bring people together in these times, because we certainly need it. I also support the amendments that are made to the rental agreements, the rental ordinance. It's sorely overdue. It's certainly a first step. I was privileged and humbled to be at some of the first meetings that were put together by the Erie Spiritual Coalition, and I greatly appreciate what they're trying to do and what council will do when you pass the amendments to the ordinance that exist. And so I ask that you do that this evening and for the second reading that's going to come up. What we really ought to be talking about this evening is the communities that are going to be at risk because of the new administration coming in. There are people, immigrants of color, refugees, our neighbors, our new American friends that we're all going to have to look out for every one of us. We all know someone. We're all going to have to really pay attention and be shepherds and guardians for them. And I'm not going to leave out the LGBTQ plus community. They're also at risk, trans folks especially, and many other communities. So we're going to have to watch out for our neighbors. Boy, what a novel thing to do. We're all going to have to pay attention to our neighbors and our community. And so that's what I ask you primarily to be mindful of as we move into the new year. And last of all, I want to wish everyone happy holidays. These are holidays that we should cherish. They come to us throughout the year. I have certain holidays. You all have other holidays. I think we ought to celebrate them all. And I want to thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
My name is Freda Tepfer, and I live in the city of Erie. So I really appreciate all of the effort that was made during the recent snowstorm to provide access for vehicles in the city of Erie. I will highlight that what we did was go out of our way to provide access for vehicles in the city of Erie. There is a chronic problem that businesses, churches, nonprofits, hospitals clear their parking lots and their driveways, and somehow they don't understand that they're not supposed to put vast piles of snow from clearing those parking lots and driveways in the sidewalk. We all know that the city plows our driveways shut every time they go through, and I have cleared that out myself, and I've paid people to help me do it, but I'm talking about 4, 6, 8, 10-foot piles. Chronically, the same places do it every year. I can always count on Teresa's Deli on Green Garden doing it, but not just there, many, many places. And this is in violation of 717.01 in the city's code. The city should ticket these. They could raise a little money by ticketing all these entities that block the sidewalk. They have entire parking lots. They can forego parking spaces so that people can access the sidewalk. Also, last year, when we didn't have so much snow, the city's plowing blocked the intersections, Brown Street, many places. We didn't have that much snow, so it isn't a question of how much snow we have. Cities that have snow prepare for this, and they designate places to haul snow to. It's not appropriate to have 6, 4, 8, 10-foot piles of snow blocking access to the intersection, blocking access to the pedestrian push buttons. This is not the way we should treat our pedestrians. So I want to go to the rental ordinance. I think what is particularly interesting is the definition of habitability by defining what is a habitable apartment, what is acceptable, by setting forth processes for making complaints, for how to deal with rent raises and how to deal with what the tenant does or doesn't do, and that the tenant has a right to have company. I think this is a real step forward, and the city should be proud to have something like that, and I hope you pass it both times. I also want to thank you all, even those of you who I don't always agree with, for your service this year, and I hope that we can have agreement and disagreement in a civil way. And I too will be looking out for my fellow residents, those who may be profiled or may somehow be threatened, and I hope that our city has no cooperation between ICE and the police department, that there's no reason that the police department should be turning people over to ICE, and I don't believe they do. but I just want to highlight that. I hope that that continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Freda.
Dave Forrest, Erie. I'm here for the monumentally important issue of leaf collection. So I've been here, this is my third meeting here, and you've all heard me kind of rant about this before, but I've been looking for an answer regarding why we provide better service and for leaf collection in Frontier and Glenwood than we do in the rest of the community. And I haven't gotten a meaningful answer yet. And I'd like to either get an answer tonight while I'm at the podium or get a commitment from the entire body of elected officials, including you, Joe, to get me a meaningful answer on why we do the things we do and collect leaves at the curb in those neighborhoods when it appears to be contrary to the law. So can I get an answer tonight or a commitment that by the next meeting I will get an answer?
As pointed out, may I give him an answer?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Council just doesn't have an answer. We don't legislate that, and we don't budget it, and it comes down to the executive branch and executing it. And you know that. You're the staff person I trust the most to have ever read their home rule charter and ordinances.
I know that, and I appreciate that, but you're all part of the government. You're all elected officials. You're all Democrats. You're all part of the Democrat club. I mean, and I don't mean to be really pejorative about that, but you are, right? You're all, you know each other. I can't imagine that there's anything that's happening at the executive level that you guys couldn't get an answer from. Am I right? You're giving me an incredulous look. And I know we're having discussions, so we probably need your permission, but I mean, I would think that the mayor would have this information, why we collect leaves the way we do in those two neighborhoods. Because we're doing it and we're dedicating city resources to it, there must be a reason why we're doing it. There must be a history behind it. There's got to be an answer. And as a taxpayer, I think I deserve an answer. I've been here at 3 meetings. Can I get an answer? Yeah. Mr. Mayor, can I get an answer?
I can't answer you, it's your time to talk.
You could answer me. You could answer. Can I get a commitment to have an answer next month? Can I get your commitment to give me an answer next month? You're not going to give me a commitment to get an answer next month. To a simple question, I can't even get a straightforward answer to a simple question. I know, but I'm going to defer to you.
One-on-one with the mayor, talking to all of us.
I understand. I understand, but you can understand my frustration, Ed, right?
We need to be respectful, we need to direct comments to the whole body, not ask
Okay.
questions individually, we're going nowhere.
Well,
Make an appointment with me. Let's direct comments to council, that's it.
but Ed, I think I deserve an answer when I come to the
Make an
council.
appointment with me.
Okay. I'd rather hear from the mayor. I'll be here tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. My name's Kimberly Hunter. I live in Italy, in the city. Good evening, Mr. Troop, Ed, Mr. Mayor. Elected officials have long ignored their duty as employees of Erie's taxpayers. I must address the glaring failure in the snow removal during the last 2 storms. Despite heavier snowfall than in recent years, a few years of warm weather doesn't justify ignoring weather warnings, especially lake effect ones. We live on a Great Lake in one of the snowiest cities in the U.S. and should be among the best equipped for such events. The roads weren't pre-salted. The city lacked parking guidance and plows were slow to respond after a foot or more had fallen. Clearly, there was no plan, and the week-long warnings from NOAA and the media were ignored. This wasn't unexpected. A deliberate choice was made. Many were isolated or stranded for days, And in my neighborhood, not a single plow appeared until 5 days, long after the first 2 feet fell. And for that, a thank you to our county executive, Brenton Davis, for aiding the city where it failed to deliver the services taxpayers pay for. Even after that, it took another 3 days for a city plow to pass by, and at that, its blade came by raised up in the air. It was over a week before main roads were truly addressed, and with our already dangerous infrastructure, a foot of packed snow and ice made them even more perilous. With the high cost of living and home ownership, it's difficult for anyone in the city to stock up on more than a few days' worth of food. For matters the city can't control, this was as dangerous and negligent as it gets. In contrast, Mill Creek, Summit, and Northeast and other areas manage the situation far more effectively, likely by taking warnings seriously and acting proactively rather than reacting. Being lax in awarding grants is one thing, and voters have given you the benefit of the doubt or let abuses slide, but not on failing to prepare or budget adequately for predictable natural disasters, especially when forewarned well in advance. Erie stands out as a unique failure in this episode. Adjacent communities, all with smaller budgets, were clearing sidewalk snow by the time our roads became remotely navigatable. Regarding renters' rights, this is a critical issue that should never have reached this point. An entire advocacy effort has lobbied for basic disclosures and protections that should have been debated in the public square half a century ago, not in 2024. How can we attract new residents and young families if we have a crippling housing cost burden and no protections or sense of what protections are legally entitled to? This requires more than just consolidating and clarifying rights. At the heart of these issues is an affordability crisis, and given the shrinking population and weak labor market, it's not a supply and demand issue. So using public dollars or lending the public's creditworthiness to projects based on the lowest bid housing development for a few hundred isn't a serious solution. Between questions of rights and the core issue of affordability, there is clearly a structural problem in our housing market beyond market forces. It's clearly a problem that falls squarely on local government and specifically a city council controlled by a single-party rule for half a century. At a certain point, we must ask if repeating the same mistake over and over makes sense if we want a different result. We have trusted one party and given its standard bearers the benefit of the doubt 98.4% of the time through 5 decades of elections. Enough is enough. And never before has that message resonated so much. And for that reason, I want to thank our council president for drawing voters' attention, many who often sit at home in our municipal elections, to the conduct and mindset of our local government. If failing to address the challenges of our population faces wasn't enough, I am confident that the head of our city council ranting over the many uneducated members of her own community as racists or an embarrassment, exposing a deep resentment for so many of the people she is meant to represent, very well could be the straw to break the camel's back.
Hello, my name is Brittany Souley. I am from the city of Erie, and I would like to say that the last meeting that I attended here, I think for the first time in my life, really watched what Grace Under Fire was. Thank you. I'm actually here with my partner and my 5-year-old, who is very excited to be here today, to be a part of things. And I'm here today to express that, number one, the proposed amendments to the Tenants' Bill of Rights are of paramount importance to our city and our people, and especially those who live in extreme poverty. This would include the mandatory rent abatement, practical solutions to address the housing crisis, like code enforcement, proactive housing inspections, and strengthening tenant protections to help prevent retaliation against tenants who report unsafe conditions. It's highly necessary in our richly diverse city to also make these renters' rights more accessible. So many have no idea that they even exist. Whether that's a technological barrier, a language barrier, or just a lack of planning, we need to take care of that as well. And that's a lot of what I heard at the last meeting that I was happy to hear. I think these are great ideas and that they should be added as soon as possible, bureaucratically possible, to what is current. That was number one, the business that we should be focusing on. Number two is the very obvious. Looking around the room, feeling the static building and charging the air with division, disruption, distraction. It's ridiculous. And honestly, it feels dangerous. Some of the angriest people in attendance this evening aren't even from the city of Erie. They have nothing to add to the progress the people and this council work so hard to achieve. They're here for retaliation. I wonder why some choose fear and hate over progress and community. If I'm ever called out on being a hateful person or anything like that, I would really hope to have a conversation to try and figure out why, instead of just going, hey, what? And then just bouncing it right back until it turns into an absolute show. I hope that the rest of the evening can go on as civilly as this has so far. Thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Savannah Wilson. I've lived in Erie for 23 years. Tonight, before I continue with what I have planned to speak about, I wanted to speak about the energy also in this room and the energy in this country has shifted immensely. And I just wanted to say that even though we disagree on a lot of things, I've heard a couple people already mention some things that we can find common ground to so we can start solving the problems and stop focusing on the issues. So with that being said, this tenant Bill of Rights is more than just an ordinance. It's a call for action. It's a demand for justice and equity in our city. For far too long, our council has been dominated by those who are clinging to power and blocking the path for the next generation to lead and build what we need. The greed and the complacency of the old guard have left too many of us, especially young people, struggling to make real change. Yesterday, we lost a 17-year-old boy to gun violence. Another tragic reminder of the failure to act. The pain and the suffering that we endure is a direct result of their inaction and their refusal to invest into our communities and to protect our youth. The Tenant Bill of Rights is a step towards creating a city where all residents, especially young, the marginalized, and the vulnerable, have the rights and protections that they deserve. It's time to step out and to break the cycle of neglect, step up for the future that doesn't have to be defined by pain. Every year, Erie experiences pain before the new year. Why? Why? Every time I come to the city council, there is a child or a teenager that has passed away before I have to come up here and continue to keep talking about this importance. Instead of arguing with each other on Facebook, can we work together? Because our kids need us. Our future, America needs us. We need to step up and take back. Stop fighting with each other. We need each other right now. We're not the enemies to each other in this room. It's big corporations, it's big governments. They are hurting our people, and in result, we are hurting ourselves. I am tired of this cycle. Stop hating each other. Can we just have a conversation? A conversation, because at the end of the day, when we take away all of the BS, we are all fundamentally are trying to survive. We want a better future for our kids, for ourselves, and for our neighbors. We don't want prices to be too high, and we don't want to feel like we're being taken advantage of as taxpayers. I'm 23. And I don't think it's that hard to understand. It's just we're trying to overcomplicate it because we keep trying to hold on to something that is dying. It's no longer here. We're in the new age, 2025. Technology is on a rise. AI is here. But with that being said, we can no longer afford to wait. The time is now to act. Make sure that this bill is passed, and it's time to start building a future that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Constantine Hyotis, and I just moved to Erie 2 years ago. And I can honestly say, my wife and I, we love Erie. It's a nice city. The people we've experienced, every day we go out, every time we go out, have been nothing but really nice to us. I feel like that's a good thing to try to build on. You know, let's try to live in a community where we're not going at each other, but rather lifting each other up. And my experiences as far as life is concerned, I was raised in Long Island, okay? I was raised during the Jimmy Carter era, and there were Democrats and Republicans that got along then. So there's no reason to say that, oh, you know, you wear blue, I wear red, or whatever the case may be, we gotta be at each other's throats. We don't. We don't need to do that. We need to work together and lift each other up. We got bigger enemies to worry about. We got Russia. We got China. We got people that are threatening our lives with nuclear war. This is serious. What the Democrats did to the border is disgraceful. But I'm not going to sit there and say that everybody that comes across the border is a bad person. I'm of Greek heritage. I grew up in Long Island, okay? I grew up, my best friends were black, Hispanic, German, Italian, Jewish, every single type of race in the spectrum. And I don't come here to Erie to preach or to try to get anyone to agree with me. All I'm saying is that we got to start being adults. We got to start treating each other with respect. And if we say something that might be wrong, we don't need to jump down each other's throats. Somebody was here just a few minutes ago pointing out somebody in the crowd. I don't think that's right. I think everybody's got a right to their opinion. Now, as far as what was said during one of Trump's campaigns about the island of Puerto Rico, I was 100% not with that. I was not agreeing with it. I did not like it. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of Puerto Rican kids, and blacks, and Jewish, and Italian, and Greeks, and Irish, okay? We were kind of a melting pot. We found a way to get along, even during the Carter years. If anybody remembers the Carter years, how would you like to sit? I was a little kid in the car, but I remember my dad cursing the you-know-what the hell out of everybody, waiting 3 hours to get gas. We don't want to go back to those days. So the bottom line is everybody's got to basically kind of just man up and start working together to lift each other up. So this election happened, okay? The bottom line is the message by the party that was not with Trump didn't have a clear message to the people on how they were going to make their lives better. So now we got to move forward and deal with it. We can't sit there and keep fighting each other over it because it's not going to solve anything. And like I stated, we got bigger enemies to worry about. China and Russia, they're licking their chops. They see how weak we are. And we do have a president right now. And it's not Joe Biden. It's Donald J. Trump. And if the Democrats would just love this country a little bit more than they hated Donald Trump, then maybe we can all lift up our bootstraps, be happy, live in prosperity, and look out for each other. Thank you.
My concern while I'm here, I'm an Erie resident, and I live
Can we
down
have
by
your name, sir?
John Kolszewski.
Thank you.
I do live down by Soldier and Sailors on East 3rd Street. I know the weather's been bad, but I have a neighbor that I've been dealing with, that I've been trying to get a hold of Mr. Moz about, with him plowing the ice on an old right-of-way. It's on the map as a road, because when they put the water lines down there, The guy that did the water lines showed me on the map, it is still on the city's map. It is listed as a city road. It's the T, it goes right in between East 3rd and East 4th, and the part that goes over by the St. Hedrick's Church, the back section, which would probably be old, as I know it, by my parents, because I grew up here since 1966. I used to drive through there. It was, my dad would go there, take me for a ride through there. So we used to call it Old Ash Street Extension. The problem is the issue with this R&R contractor, which his name is Raul Rodriguez. He plows his snow right behind my car during this, I know that accidents happen, ice comes off the roof, but he pushed all the snow right behind our public housing, which is handled by hands. They could not get back there to plow. He pushed all the ice off the roof right behind in the car, my car, everybody else's car, the neighbor's car. I'm not the only neighbor that wanted to come down here. But for me to actually get any response for this, it took an old city council member to get it cleaned out. Abby Coley. She's the one that got some results for me. But I would like to talk to I don't know who I would talk to about this guy, because I don't know if I have to talk to the city council or the engineer or the streets department or even the mayor's office. The guy thinks he owns that right away, and it belongs to the city. And it's been going on since 2015, 2016. It needs to stop. I've been polite to him. I went to go out 4th Street. The other one guy's things came off his house. And I asked the guy politely, would you please move the wood so I could get out and get to the grocery store? Because it was right by his property. He got real mouthy with me, and my wife can even, if she's here, she can verify that he got nasty with me. And I was polite to him. It's been an ongoing issue that I've been dealing with Mr. Moz. I have COPD, I have other issues. We count on, in that Hands building that's handled by a lot of handicapped people, that alleyway has to be kept open because Emergicare and the fire department use that. And so does soldiers and sailors when they come out of work and they can't, if there's a supply truck like in the snowstorm, they got stuck, they couldn't go across 4th Street, across that right away to get to 4th Street to go home. And then the city plowed it in, and I called them up after somebody had already cleaned most of it out to come and scoop the rest, and they gave me a hard time over it. And I work and I pay taxes, and it's like, if I call and ask, hey, you put it there, could you come and please move it when you got time? I was polite. But the main issue is with this R&R contractor. I need to have somebody from the city to send him a letter stating that is city property. That's all I'm requesting. I don't know who I have to talk to face to resolve it, because I do have a video in my phone which I can show to whoever I need to resolve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hannah Moran, the City of Erie. I've come tonight to support the Tenant Bill of Rights. The Coalition's ability to engage the community since the beginning has been truly outstanding. Their ability to engage them through discussions, through in-person support here at meetings tonight, and the hundreds of signatures that they presented to you from neighborhoods across the city is a testament to the demand of this critical initiative. Because of my own work in housing, my community knows I work in housing, and I have lots of stories of my own. Folks come to me with the challenges that they have, that their neighbors have, their families and their friends have. Often these challenges are because they see a broken system and they aren't sure how to navigate that system themselves or advocate effectively for their own neighbors. For example, this summer we had a stretch of very hot 90-degree days, and I learned about a family whose apartment windows were nailed and then sealed shut. They had no central air, making the unit inhabitable. They were afraid to push their landlord to address those issues because prior requests, such as repairing unsafe stairs and removing hazardous waste, which was in the unit when they moved in, had gone unresolved and disregarded, and worse, they feared retaliation for speaking up and advocating for themselves. If we had a comprehensive city-approved tenant bill of rights, this family and their advocate and their neighbors could have pointed to the clause and demanded action. They could have felt empowered to uphold their responsibility to inform the property owner while also expecting the owner address those issues without fear of repercussion. Tenants in this incredibly challenging housing market and economy don't want to move, and so they endure conditions that I think many of us would find uninhabitable. This bill will empower tenants and landlords alike, clarifying their rights and responsibilities and creating a more equitable dynamic between renters and property owners, and is a step towards dismantling the inherent imbalance in that relationship. With renters making up 50% of Erie's population and even a higher percentage in some communities, this should be a priority issue for the city, and I thank you very kindly for taking it on. Council has worked very diligently on systemic improvements like inspections and zoning, but this bill addresses something a bit more personal, that direct relationship between tenant and the property owner. By adopting this measure, Council will signal to renters that they have their rights, safety, and stability being taken seriously by members, and it will give them the language they need to advocate for themselves and for their neighbors. This ordinance consolidates existing protections into a single accessible resource, breaking down barriers for Erie's diverse population, including those with language or access challenges. The bill is not just a document, it is a statement that Erie values its residents, especially its renters, and is committed to protecting them from unsafe or exploitative practices. The adoption also signals support by the Council for broader legislative improvements in 2025 that we would love to see coming, including works in progress I already mentioned. In closing, I ask for your support, each and every one of you, for this tenant bill of rights that has been brought to you by residents. The vote is more than a policy decision. It is a commitment to listening to Erie residents and acting to create a healthier, more equitable city. I appreciate all of your time and effort as you've worked to listen to all of our comments over the last several months and the last year. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Juan Llarena, and I'm from Mill Creek. And I'm here to encourage you to support the Tenant Bill of Rights. And I'll do so by sharing a personal story. So in 1960, my family came from Cuba and moved to Miami. And I was an infant at that time, and I would go to sleep thinking that rats were going to bite me. My sister woke up with a scorpion in her bed at one time or another. And we lived in a very small place, but over the years we overcame it, and my father encouraged us to get educated because he did not speak much English. So that alone is reason to support the Tenant Bill of Rights. The other reason is that greed and selfishness is really part of our human condition. And I humbly admit my own selfishness. In 2008, when the mortgages fell apart and the economy went down, that was greed and selfishness at every level. Even though people may not have known what mortgage they were getting into, that they wouldn't be able to pay it, I'm sure they had a lot of red flags in their house that they couldn't afford a $300,000 house. So I really encourage you to support this thing, and thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Veronica Rexford. I live in Mill Creek, and I work in the city. I'm here representing myself, not my employer, or the Sewer Authority Board, which I'm sure would be terribly worried about what I have to say. I'm kidding. I'm going to tie a couple things together. I do work with a lot of new Americans. The housing situation that they are placed in when they initially arrive here very often is appalling. Absolutely, practically uninhabitable places that they are expected to live. Back in, I think, 2018, Penn State Barron did a study on the economic impact of new Americans in the county of Erie. $256 million a year was a conservative estimate of the economic impact that those people who were born somewhere else and ended up here provide to our municipalities. Nativist, Christian nationalist, isolationist policies that would keep new Americans away from the city of Erie, particularly through the refugee resettlement program, will cause the city to collapse economically. We've had a few bites at the apple to try and keep the best and the brightest, the young, the graduating students, to keep them here, fighting the history, the inevitable movement through the Rust Belt time as manufacturing went down here. If we do not keep the new Americans who are coming here and who should continue to come here in the future in the pipeline to come live in Erie, and we fail to keep them here because of the situation with housing, y'all, I don't know about your jobs. It's a problem. You know it's a dwindling tax base. I embrace my friends, different religions, from different countries, from different continents. I have worked at a community center where I interact with all these people every day, and they're some of my closest and dearest friends. Don't cut yourself in the foot by supporting policies that would drive those people away. And make sure that they have housing that's adequate available to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Mary Nelson. I'm from Mill Creek as well, and I thank you for placing the Tenants' Bill of Rights on the agenda and heeding the voices of so many community members in the Erie area. This is a vital step in making a big difference to so many folks in our community who, because of their poverty, and as we heard, they're new Americans, they live in housing that is not really housing at all. The word substandard doesn't adequately describe some of the conditions. They may be dirty, cold, insect infested, broken appliances and utilities, unsafe, and overcrowded. Oversight by the city will make a big impact in safer places to live. I volunteer at the Emmaus Soup Kitchen, and I see parents who bring their children to eat there because money is so tight they can't afford both rent and food. They spend so much of their income on rent that it doesn't leave much for other necessities. So having a safe place to call home helps these kids learn. They have stability and security. The families have less stress. It improves their physical and their mental health. But for millions of tenants across the U.S., the cost of housing has far outpaced wages, putting renters at greater risk of housing instability and eviction. According to the 2024 National Low-Income Housing Coalition, here in the Erie metropolitan area, the fair market rent for a two-bedroom rental is $983. It would require working over 2.5 minimum wage jobs to afford this, or an annual income of almost $40,000. It's just not there. It's no wonder we see so many people at the soup kitchens and the food pantries. Better housing means stronger families and a thriving community. So I look forward to how council will work to implement this, knowing that they want what's best for our city's residents, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Priscilla Richter, a retired pastor who came to Erie 7 years ago to connect with the Erie Benedictine sisters and their ministries. I'm here to support the Tenant Bill of Rights. I live in the Pax Priory of the Benedictines on East 9th Street, and I volunteer at the Emmaus Soup Kitchen and other inner city ministries. I'm also an avid walker, so I've seen housing on the east side that is blighted, not worthy of people living in. And I've heard stories and issues of people from many different walks of life. And I feel like I know the east side up close and personal. I've been part of the Erie Spiritual Coalition since its inception, and our mission is grounded in spiritual principles, and as we strive to bridge the gap between people, organizations, and government by advocating policies that foster human flourishing and thriving communities. I'd like to ask, for those of you who are here to support the Tenant Bill of Rights, to please stand so we can see how many of you there are. Thank you, that is impressive. From the start at the ESC, we discerned that housing was top priority. For housing, safe housing, is a basic human need. The Tenant Bill of Rights is an outgrowth of our work. And we've done a lot of that to get to this point. We've talked to people all over the city about their experiences with housing, sad stories, yet even some grateful stories. This is most definitely the time to pass the Tenant Bill of Rights. We seem to be in a period of perfect storm. First, housing costs and rents have gone up astronomically alongside of other inflationary pressures. Second, available rental units are in short supply, and I see so many blighted and boarded up houses on many blocks in the poorer neighborhoods. And third, if tenants are not protected by a fair process of eviction, they may well end up homeless. Our numbers have increased noticeably at the soup kitchen and among agencies who provide services to the homeless. And often we think of homeless as individuals, but many families are homeless too, or in overcrowded or unsafe housing. Regardless, now is the time to engage in that fair process that would enable tenants to live in safe housing without fear of unreasonable eviction through no fault of their own, and that their homes be up to code. This legislation is a major step in that direction. And this legislation is not to pit tenants versus landlords. It seeks a fair process. Plus, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Krista Perry Lamb. I am a City of Erie resident, lifelong. Thank you, Mayor Schember. Thank you, President Flores and the rest of council for the opportunity to speak this evening. Today, December 18th, is an anniversary for me. A year ago today, on a snowier night than this, I stood at the Erie County Council meeting, and I found my civic voice. I found my passion for activism as I watched former county council President Brian Schenk disenfranchise citizens who came out to speak on behalf of their public library. And they were I saw elderly citizens led away by sheriff deputies. It was a night I will never forget. It is a mark in time that has changed the course of my life and purpose. And so that brings me here today to support the Tenant Bill of Rights. Now, when I became a single mom about 6 years ago, I became a renter. I am very, very lucky and fortunate to have a very good landlord, reasonable rent. I understand that this is a privilege, and this is not the case for so many others that live in this city. And so I'm here to stand up and advocate for those people who couldn't be here tonight or don't necessarily have found their voice like I have found my voice finally. And I want to thank you all for bringing this to the agenda and bringing this to the attention of the people. We really appreciate the work that you do here. We know the sacrifice, the time, the energy that you put. It's not just at these meetings, it's time outside, it's meeting with your constituents, it's caucusing. So thank you so much for your time and for giving to this community. And thank you for considering on the agenda tonight to uplift all of our fellow citizens here in Erie with the Tenant Bill of Rights. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hello, Erie City Council. My name is Morgan Henderson. I live in the city of Erie. I came here to speak on a few things that are on my notes to speak on. First, 34 years old, and I have not seen the city of Erie not be in a deficit budget-wise. That's a shame. And I know that it's difficult to balance things, to make things work for an entire city, but we are dealing with Trump as president and someone as, like myself. I'm a middle ground person. When I turned 18 and registered to vote, they said, do you want to be a Democrat or a Republican? And I said, neither. They all sound crazy, okay? So how I look at things is we're all human. We're all living in the same space, the same world. So there are going to be things that, we can find similarities on, and there's going to be things that we keep our differences on. But we have to make it work as a unit. We need to stop separating ourselves based on what our political stance are. And I would like it to go back to the days where you didn't talk about politics in public. That was something, you kept in the home and, you didn't talk about who you voted for out loud. I don't need to know who you voted for. I don't care. So moving from that, I see that our mayor has proposed his budget for the 2025 year, and it includes some garbage and sewer hikes. And I, as a resident, have major strifes with the Erie Water Department. One of those being when I paid off my mother's home after she passed away. I was told that the bill stays with the house, not with the person. And I said, okay, we can do that. And so my estate lawyer told me what I needed to do. The estate cannot be closed unless you handle these bills that were under your mother. I went down to Erie Water Works. I paid what I thought was my deceased mother's last bill, and in cash, got my receipt, and I started getting bills in my name. Okay? At the top of the year, when they put the water, sewer, and garbage bills back together and combined them, I got a surprising bill. That was my late mother's bill that they told me I owed about $2,000 of. And I was extremely confused. I pulled up my emails with the lawyer. I said, this was the receipt I gave the lawyer when we closed the estate. That was something I handled. I'm confused. And I got the wish around with them over and over again, back and forth on why this bill occurred, that it was up to me to add it to my online account. If I didn't add the bill myself and put the account numbers in there to my name, then I wouldn't see it. And so I had a huge problem with that. But what I said, let's work on this. Let's pay this. Let's work on payments. So every month I started paying this bill down. And every time I made a payment, I got a shut-off notice. And I'm like, did you not just see the payment I just made? And they said, well, yeah, you made that payment, but you still have this balance due from that account, and then you have your account. Okay, but are you not working with me the way that I thought that we could work with each other? Because this was a surprise bill to me. you know. But according to them, it should not have been a surprise, and apparently I did not pay her last bill in person and gain receipt for that. And so it had got to the point that I even had a woman on the phone that said, hold on, let me talk to my supervisor. I see you made an $800 payment, you made a $200 payment, you're making all these payments. Why do we keep trying to shut your water off? So that was confusing. And so let's remember in those, you know, budget proposals, let's keep the Erie Water Department in line when it comes to dealing with their customers, because that was just egregious to me, and I can't think that I'm the only customer that's dealt with something so totally out of the norm with them. Moving on from the water department, I am also in agreement with the tenant Bill of Rights. I live on East 10th and Reed, and in my small block, we have a lot of homeowners. And so we all out there. Spring comes, everybody's remulching, everybody's getting their yards beautiful, you know, making sure that our neighborhood reflects the type of people that we are. My little tiny spot on 10th Street, right there by Rosebud's Flower Shop, it's just gorgeous. I love it. I sit on the porch, my kids can play in my fence. It's a beautiful part of the city, but there are a few homes on our block that they just don't reflect the rest of us. And those happen to be owned by landlords, and they rent the homes. And these people, when I see them and I interact with them and their children, they keep clean homes. They're good people. They pick up trash outside their yards. So they're also doing their part to keep this neighborhood looking like something we should be proud of, okay? But I was appalled when I went next door because the apartment was open.
I'm sorry, but that was the timer for your 5 minutes. I do want to hear the rest of what you have to say, just because.
I just want to say I was astounded by the state of the apartment inside next door to me, and that this woman had been paying $1,200 a month for this downstairs flat, and she lived there for 15 years, my oldest son's whole entire life. And that landlord has not put not a dime of work into that home that woman and her family stayed in. And my mouth dropped because I'd never been in there in 15 years, only, you know, speak outside with each other. So I'll move on from there, but we need to make sure these landlords aren't putting new linoleum tiles down and spiking the rent because, you know, it apparently looks good from the outside.
Thank you so much.
We deserve better.
Good evening. My name is Dan Pirtle. I live in Erie. I'm here to advocate for the Tenant Bill of Rights. A little bit unique situation, though. I'm not a tenant. I'm a landlord. So, you know, I'd like to think that my wife and I are pretty good landlords. Our tenants might say different if they were here tonight. But I've had the privilege, if you want to call it that, to see some apartments around the area. I've done some property management. I've got to go in some properties that were for sale where they were Section 8 approved and they were, you know, a subsidized landlord, and it was horrible. You know, people sleeping on mattresses in a kitchen with a stove on because the heat wasn't working. One overhead light that barely worked in the room, and it was compliant. It was compliant, but it didn't, you know, for anyone to habitate, it was horrible. And we have hundreds, if not thousands, of those types of properties in the city. And, you know, as this woman just alluded to, some of these landlords, they don't care. They bought the house cheap. They're milking as much as they can out of it. And then they put it back on the market and try and make a huge profit off of it. And this landlord, this Tenant Bill of Rights is going to help some of that. But, you know, it's only one step, all right? You know, a lot of people have talked about most of our country right now is living paycheck to paycheck, meaning you're this close to getting evicted, you're this close to poverty, you're this close to homelessness, all right? So not only do you have these rents going up all over the place, but it's rents going up in a place that is completely inefficient, all right? And I know because for some reason we pay our utilities on our rental, and it is atrociously high. And I can only imagine if our tenants had to pay that and they were on a fixed income, or they, you know, some people have to work 2-3 jobs just to make their rent. And then winter comes in Erie and we get 4 foot of snow and your gas bill's $300 for the month, right? So I look at this Tenant Bill of Rights as just one step in that right direction. And then after that, we should be looking at things like the drastic amount of sudden Airbnbs that we've had pop up in the area, and long-term tenants have been slowly pushed out of those areas. And now you've got neighborhood degradation and things like that. You know, on my block alone, we have places that are vacant Airbnbs. You barely ever see anybody in there. House is always dark. The neighborhood is just slowly eroding away. And I understand that's not in this tenant bill of rights, but it's a step in the right direction. So as a landlord, as someone who actually cares about people that live in my community, employees that work for me that I know are all renters who are barely getting by, even though we pay pretty good wage, you know, it's something that I think is just common sense for our own economy in Erie for us to push through. And I'd just like to close by saying thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Council, for doing this thankless job. You know, a lot of us can come in here, put a hat on, doesn't matter what color it is, complain and moan and put ourselves out there to you, and we get to go home to, you know, Jazzercise or Wegmans or wherever we're coming from. But you guys have to deal with this day in and day out, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Tina Hyotis, and I am a resident of Erie's 5th District. I live off of Parade and 14th Street on the east side. I've been in Erie 2 years. I am an outsider who is now a citizen. Erie is a beautiful, beautiful city and has such potential, but the potential is not coming to pass like it should. There are good things that are being done in the city, and there are things that could be done better. I agree, a tenant bill of rights needs to be done, but there also needs to be a landlord bill of rights, so everyone knows their rights on both sides of the issue. I am neither a landlord or anything like that, but if you have one for one, you should have one for the other, so they both know their expectations and they know what is required. If these landlords are not keeping their properties that they're renting out up to par, maybe there needs to be some type of inspections done on these places before they're rented out to make sure that they are of livable conditions, that there's not holes in the floor, that there is not trees and roots and things growing through the roof. I drive through Erie, I go through Erie, and I see how beautiful these homes used to be. I see how many empty homes there are. The key to having good, affordable, safe rental properties is going to work hand in hand with bringing jobs and businesses into this community. That's also going to help increase population, and it is going to increase the tax base for the city. The other thing is, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's at least 4 colleges in the city or surrounding area of Erie. You have students that are coming in here and going to school, but how many of those students are actually staying in Erie, getting jobs and raising families? Or how many of them are just using this as a stepping stone to go where they need to go to do better for themselves? This city should be a place where those students and anyone who is wishing to reside in Erie can come and make not only Erie better, but their family and their life better. And I think that a lot of these things that are being proposed have branches that go out into other areas. And those things need to kind of be tied together and looked at on a broader base. Because I see these vacant buildings for businesses. I see these vacant houses. And there's no reason for it to be like that. Erie is a prime location to numerous things to do. You have Buffalo 2 hours, you have Cleveland 2 hours, you have Philly, you have Pittsburgh, you have Canton, Ohio. You have Niagara Falls. New York is not that far. Erie should be drawing in more residents and more jobs than they're currently drawing in. And that is one of the ways that we're going to make Erie a better city for not only the people who currently live here, but the people who want to reside here in the future. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Floyd Ho. I'm a proud resident of the city of Erie. And I'm here, not to be redundant, but I'm here to support the Bill of Tenants' Rights. I feel the bill will help oversee that process, be a safety valve so tenants and landlords will benefit from it. When you go unchecked, when you're allowed to do whatever you want to do, then things can go awry. But in the worst conditions, you need some place where you can go to that cares and makes sure that you got an equilibrium that can help you through the difficult process. So I don't want to be redundant. Y'all very busy, but I do want y'all to know that I, along with others, strongly support the Bill of Tenants' Rights, and it's something that I think will benefit this great city in which I live. Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Hello, Erie City Council members. My name is Joseph Glassman. I am here today to have my voice be heard in reaction to the Council President Jasmine Flores' comments, including her public
which
statement
municipality do you live in, sir?
that Red Hat followers are racist and calling the Red Hats the new white hood for the KKK.
What municipality do you live in, sir?
Excuse me?
What municipality do you live in?
Erie.
Okay, thank you. Now you may continue.
Yeah, I'm a long resident of Erie, 65 years old, lived in Erie my whole life, and worked at General Electric and retired from there.
Thank you.
Please let me begin by saying that Jasmine Flores states that she stands by her comments and her freedom of speech. Many lifelong Erie residents, such as myself, disagree strongly with her. Her comments were published on her personal social media page and displayed the official City of Erie logo seal in the header, directly above the comment. This tells all of us, residents of Erie, that she was speaking on behalf of the City of Erie City Council, and Council shares her same views. This point is also shown by other members of Council defending her actions and comments, and not one member of City Council putting her at fault. Ms. Flores states it's her freedom of speech and does not think she even did anything wrong, even with the City of Erie seal on the header. No apology or anything from Ms. Flores. She does not care about the thoughts of most voters in Erie and thumbed her nose up to them as she publicly called them racist. So with no apologies issued and no accountability to the statement, Ms. Flores stated officially that she will not resign, even though 80% of Erie residents are calling for her resignation. Let it be known today, December 18, 2024, an official transcript, that we are coming peacefully for your position as president of Erie City Council. Ms. Flores is up for re-election in November of 2025, and we are going to work hard to vote her off of City Council. Having her as president is not very beneficial to the majority of Erie residents, the same people that she called racist. Let it be known that we have a common sense conservative candidate in line for this. Our plan, which will be successful, is to elect this president as our council president for the good of the people of Erie. The mandate was proven in the 2024 general election when the Red Hat movement elected President Trump. All 7 swing states, popular and electoral victories. And yes, Erie, Pennsylvania turning red as well, showing the majority of Erie I speak of. So we are coming peacefully for your positions, Ms. Flores and a couple of other city council members. There was one city council member seen screaming and yelling at voters in the election process at the courthouse. Your days on city council is numbered as we make city council great again.
Good evening. My name is Deontay Cooley. I'm a lifelong resident of Erie, Pennsylvania. I understand that there are different things on the agenda. I did not come to speak to anything on the agenda. What I came to speak about was there was a tragic event that took place yesterday. There's been a group of individuals who have come up here to speak, and I believe only 2 people actually spoke to the incident that took place. I've heard Ms. Flores called out. I've heard Mr. Shane called out. I've heard people talk about the Tenant Bill of Rights, but I have not heard people actually talk about human life, young people. And I do remember when you all were doing your city council meetings and you were going to the community centers. I went to 2 out of 3 of those meetings, and I did ask, is there any possibility for us to have some resources, some educational resources for people who are trying to lead the youth, for them to see a better path? I'm not sure if you all noticed, there was a group of young men who were outside of the door. They came, their intention was to speak, but they weren't able to contain themselves to be able to do so. So the man who was leading those young men, he made a decision to remove them from the vicinity because he didn't want to be a disruption. But what I do see is a room full of adult people who are able to contain themselves, who all present to be educated, and people who are able to come speak to whatever their concerns are, whatever their issues are. And I feel like a lot of us in this room need to do more work as far as helping the youth. It's not up to you all. It's not up to me. It's up to all of us as a whole. And I feel like a lot of people will come here and complain. A lot of people will call you out. A lot of people will call you out. But when it comes to actually putting forth effort and doing action, I don't know you all. I don't know a lot of you, but I don't see a lot of these faces in my community. I don't see a lot of you coming up here and saying, hey, can we save the youth? I don't see a lot of these people, like Jasmine made comments on her social media, and we come here to attack her. Kids are killing kids, and nobody's speaking on that. So is her comments that hurtful, that human life, young men aren't that hurtful? And then to say, and I made a Facebook post today and it went crazy because it's not happening in the typical hood neighborhoods. The shooting was on 31st and Liberty. The young men were arrested the car was pulled over in front of the Erie Federal Credit Union. So at this point, it affects us all. If you use that bank, it affects you. If you go to the YMCA on Glenwood, it affects you. If you go up and down P Street, Tops, Walgreens, anywhere in that vicinity, it affects you. In my opinion, I feel as though we all need to figure out what we can do to assist, to offer some educational resources, because there are people who are working in the Erie community who are trying to create avenues, to create opportunities for these young people. And these gentlemen and these women are my peers, and I understand that they lack the educational ability or the intellect to actually be able to lead these young men. But there are a room full of educated people who will come in here and argue about what color their hat is. That is disgusting to me. And when I say that is disgusting to me, I don't stand on one side or the other. There are kids who came to speak that couldn't even keep their composure enough to speak for themselves. So there's a group of young men who wanted to have something to say about what's going on with their lives, and they couldn't do it. And nobody else had enough courage, other than the other young lady who said she was 23 years old, to speak to that. There have been people who have come up here again to speak for the Tenant Bill of Rights. I'm all for that. But nobody said, hey, a young man died yesterday. There were 4 other young men who were arrested. There was 10 to 15 police officers who had guns drawn. What are we going to do? How are we going to help this? Because it is no longer a black community problem. It is no longer an inner city community problem. That vehicle was pulled over on 38th and Peach Street. It affects us all. Any of us could have been riding in that street or in that neighborhood. A bullet could have come from anywhere, and it could have been any of us. So I understand that there are people who feel like, not my kid, not my problem, not my neighborhood, not my problem, but it is now all of our problems. I don't know what the answer or the solution is, but I do believe that there are some resources to offer to some people who are trying to assist. I do believe that there are enough educated people in the room who can at least reach out to somebody or figure out, because if we can dig up her dirt, and if we can dig up my dirt, and if we can dig up his dirt, we can look and see who's helping who and how can we help. If it's offering $10, if it's offering an hour to do community service, if it's willing to say, hey, sir, I noticed that you're doing X, Y, and Z. There are a couple things that you are missing. How can I help you? Why are we as a community not doing more to make the city of Erie a better place, as opposed to trying to pick apart who's sitting in what seat, who we're going to vote for, who we're going to elect, what bill? Like, there are children who are dying, and they are dying by the hands of other children. And the people who are leading them are my peers. I know this, that they lack the mental ability, they lack the intellect to be able to lead their own children. So it's not to the point to where it starts at home anymore. Some of these parents need help learning how to be parents. Some of these people who are in these community centers need help learning how to run these community centers. Some of these people who consider themselves to be community advocates and community leaders, they need help. And they need help from people like everybody in this room, everybody sitting here, every single person who had enough courage to come grab this microphone and say, and express their concerns. Those kids couldn't even stand in the room, in the back of the room, long enough to be able to advocate for themselves. It breaks my heart to understand that there was a group of young men who were willing to come and grab this microphone and say, help me, please, that couldn't even do it, and we all witnessed it. And then I've even noticed people in the stands, you side comment and snarking, and when somebody makes a comment, but then we're looking at the window at these kids, and we're all doing it ourselves. So in my opinion, I understand, we need to step our game up, and I'll walk away, but we need some help in the city of Erie. Our kids need help. We need to, for that red hat, blue hat, green hat, yellow hat, whatever, take the hats off, and let's just make the city of Erie a better place for everybody so we can figure out a way to get along. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I say something?
Go ahead, Councilmember Nelson.
Just wanted to notify people, we actually made the city council meetings a half an hour earlier this year in the evenings to try to give better access to the youth and the children. This is an exceptional meeting for the amount of attention, but we did do that specifically for the children this year. So, very small piece of what you said there, but that one thing was done.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Devin Bailey. I live in the city of Erie on the 200 block of West 8th Street. I would just like to talk about a bit about the budget and a bit about the potential of Erie. First, when I tried to look at this year's city budget, it's the first time I've engaged with it, and to read it, I was going to be like, oh man, there's going to be all this stuff we can cut, we're wasting all this money, blah, blah, blah. But then I looked at it, and honestly, I was mostly sad that there was very little to be actually able to cut from the budget without, hurting people's jobs or, cutting people's pay. And the reason for that is that we have an income problem. We don't have much of, at least I hope we don't have a spending problem. And part of that spending problem is the fact that people just don't choose to live here. The county has about 250,000 residents, but the city has about 90,000, and it's quickly shrinking. But the county isn't shrinking as fast. That means people are choosing not to live here. And that means we need to provide something better to the people of the county, and hopefully from people all across the country, to come live in the city. I'm very proud to live in the city, but it's not always what we want it to be. And I think the really relevant example was one of the reasons I live in the city is that I like to walk to work. I'm very proud of the fact I walk to work. I do it every day, and if the problem is that like when the snowfall just happened, the sidewalks weren't cleared. And that's an injustice that most people aren't willing to face. It just isn't. And it's like, I'm willing to, I'm pretty strong-willed that I'm gonna go walk through 3 feet of snow in order to get to work, but like most people aren't. And then they're just gonna go choose to live somewhere else in the county, even if they work in the city. And so, when we don't have a bolder vision about why people should live here, it makes it hard for people to decide to live here. So what I mean by that is, what I mean by bolder vision. If we improved our walkability, if we improved our bike access, our active transit options, our ability to get places, for pedestrians to feel safe, just because it's able to be walked by foot doesn't mean I feel safe to walk it by foot. It makes it hard for me to want to live here and not just live somewhere else and drive to work outside the city. So it's something that's really important that walking is prioritized and that biking is prioritized because the city has so much potential. The block, the grid, especially north of 12th Street, is great. But the problem is that the sidewalks aren't cleared. So in the winter, for 3-4 months of the year, you can't get anywhere. And so then I have to go get a car anyway, then I have to go drive anyway. And then why am I living here? Why not go move to Mill Creek? And then now the city doesn't have tax dollars. There needs to be a plan to make sure that people have a reason to live here. And unfortunately, the city is very small, and it's very easy to live outside the city. So that means the city has to offer something different, something bolder, and something that can really, make everybody happy about living here and being proud to live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Matt Texter, Erie, Pennsylvania. Been here 23 years. Moved here from Grove City, Pennsylvania, down in Mercer County. Moved to the big city. And I can say I appreciate the city a lot. There's a lot of challenges, but I think with the work that we need to do, we can get there. And I appreciate all of you. I don't agree sometimes, and I do agree sometimes, but here we are, right, together. I was thinking about the snow removal, and I was thinking about the repository cells that we have at the beginning of the meetings. A lot of, and I also support the Tenant Bill of Rights, but I was thinking in some of these tighter neighborhoods that have high-density rentals that don't have off-street parking, if there's an empty lot there that we have on the rolls, why don't we make those into a gravel lot with a gate? Snow's coming, open the gate, the 10 or 8 cars that are parked on the street can fit in that lot between the houses. We plow, they go back out, we close the gate. I also see a lot of empty, huge space. You could probably dump a Mount McKinley size of snow in the Old Lord property. There's an opportunity, cover it all with snow till April. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of fix these things, and I wondered if there's a way to create some emergency parking in tight communities that don't have off-street parking. And also hearing, this tragic incident that happened, the loss of life. Maybe there's an opportunity to have an abbreviated city council meeting specifically for youth to attend that has the process, maybe with a couple of first readings of things that apply to the youth, have them come up and speak in an abbreviated setting, have them be aware and prepared maybe through leadership and teachers to come and present their thoughts and ideas on how we can handle things. Might be an opportunity maybe once or twice a year to do a youth-oriented, abbreviated city council meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Keys, City of Erie. I'd like to speak on a couple of different points. One, I do support the renters' Bill of Rights, but I also wanted to commend the landlord. What we really need is we need compassionate, good landlords. My mother was in the rental business for a long time, and she was one of the best. But, going back to when I first moved to D.C., Washington, D.C. was one of the highest rent districts, in the country. And I found an apartment, and the guy who rented to me was like, I don't keep my rents high on purpose so that I don't have the problems where I have to evict people, I have to go to court, and I want everyone to have a nice place to live, and, that was clean, that was safe, and he did it as part of his mission. And so what we need is more compassionate landlords who see it not just as a business, but as a responsibility and as a mission that if you are supplying housing to people, the housing should not be substandard and should not be in disrepair, and you should not charge the maximum that you can just because you can. One thing that has not gone up is the income of Erieites. And so when you're talking about 25% of your income going towards your rent, basically you do not have a renter's market who can afford 25% of what most of these landlords are charging, even for small apartments in the inner city. And so they constantly end up in court with evictions, and which add to our homelessness and our, near homelessness and a lot of the other problems. And so, number two, I want to know, when are we going to start investing in our communities? It's piggybacking off of what some other people say. I was actually in close proxy to the incident the other day. And it is a community problem. And so one of the things I say is, we're moving money from the parks budget. One of the things I've been saying for years is, we need to invest into our community. This week, Mill Creek rolled out that they are going to have a new community center. Okay, and so like the last guy said, talking about having competition. There is competition. We have the highest tax rate in the county. What are we getting for our taxes? We put $5 million away to improve this city, to improve our public places. And as of yet, this goes back to when I was on council, not one penny of it has gone into any park or any public space in this city. And that's a tragedy. That really is, that we are not prioritizing and investing in ourselves. When I was there, they tried to make me like I was an outlier, but no, we are behind. Every municipality, every county has been investing and reinvesting in their parks, in recreation, and in their communities directly. And some people say we don't like the way the community centers are doing it, but they don't have any other choices, because you know what? Our municipality and our county does not offer anything. And so we need to find ways to invest back into our community and to support the kids and support our communities with the best things that they can have. We should have the same thing they have in Mill Creek. We should have the same thing that they have in Fairview. We should have the best. You know, when I proposed, refurbishing of the Roger Young Park, the kids didn't even have a track in this town. But they run track. How's there's an equitable balance in this? We need to double down, invest in community resources, invest in the infrastructure to support those resources so our kids do have safe places to go, so that we can stave off violence, we can stave off a whole bunch of other social ills if we reinvest in our community.
Thank you.
Abdullah Washington, City of Erie. I was all ready to apologize. I thought I was bringing you, Council, a circus, but everyone seems to be coming here with good order, so we can give ourselves that. It is very important that Erie be a welcoming city. Everybody knows the poem that's attached to Lady Liberty that people saw when they were coming here after France gave us that gift. That poem mentions, give us your tired, your poor. It doesn't say, bring us engineers, doctors. But we get the tired and poor, and many of them become engineers and doctors. This is what our country is about. We have to be welcoming. We have to be able to give people a second chance. It just seems like some people, they're just itching to give somebody a spanking, when some support is going to make all the difference to our community, right? Some people look at making our communities and our country and even the city of Erie great again by subtracting something, by devaluing somebody. You can't get there that way. You have to add. You have to meet people where they are and multiply with them. You have to start with being welcoming. Erie is more than the sum of its parts. I don't care if you're a technical person and you understand the term ghost in the machine. I don't care if you're just someone who just loves to drive and you get a new car and you're following the instructions, but in enough time, you feel like that machine and you are the same. Somebody hits your car, you go, oh, they hit me. There's something that's not in the manual that makes it work. And when I see this city council, I've had the pleasure to work with all of you in some way. And I encourage everyone, the citizens of this city and this county and elsewhere, to get involved and engage with the people we have on city council now, because I promise you that's an achievement in and of itself. Not that anybody there is a stranger to work, but there's something. There's a part of everybody that you know that you can't quite put your finger on that makes them tick and that makes them work. And we need to stop looking at the lowest common denominator. We need to look at our communities and our people
for that thing deep inside them that we may not have identified previously that's going to add to the solution. Erie has a lot of problems. That's very obvious, but pointing fingers at each other isn't going to help. There's something greater than the parts we see here, everyday people in Erie, that's going to make this work, that's going to bring new people in. We were Class A resettlement city, right? It's up to us to be welcoming. That's what we're here for, to make the city work. Some people, all they know is to burn things down. And they want to be in communion, but they don't even know how to start the conversation. So I thank you, Jasmine, for your historic presidency here. I know a lot of people do appreciate you trying to bring together these elements that we haven't seen come forward. But it takes all of us. We are more than the sum of our parts. And this tenants' rights bill is an expression of that. We want to bring people in, people who don't know how they're going to pay the next bill or the next bill. We want them to feel included as well. And I appreciate everyone who came out to speak to that. And give yourselves a hand clap, because we had some good order tonight. And I think this is the way that we get things done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council. I'm Marty Wachuku. I reside in the city of Erie, and happy early New Year's. With those New Year's wishes, I want to cast a vision of hope, but also be real about the situation that we're in today in the city of Erie. So, a couple of weeks ago, we had a pretty major snowstorm that incapacitated a lot of people around the city, be it they were elders, be it they were youth, be it everyone. And some of the people who are in my community lost wages due to our inability to clear roads and get things out in a timely manner. And that's not me casting any kind of blame, but it speaks to the issue that we're here for tonight around the Renters' Bill of Rights. I see this Bill of Rights not as the final solution for renters' issues in Erie, but as one of the first steps in letting renters know that our public officials support and advocate and care about their interests when it comes to the city. Whether you call us an oligarchy nationally, which is what some economists have been calling us for years, but looking at the incoming regime next year and seeing all the millionaires and billionaires in it, you can call us a plutocracy. That is being a government ran by the ultra wealthy. So I think it's a really great sign that here locally that we have representatives who are centering the needs of marginalized people, such as the renting class, such as the working class, to make sure that we have at least a little bit of economic power and protection. This being a starting point, I hope that it will pass this first vote and second vote, and I hope that it opens up opportunities for us to talk about a renter's right to counsel, to talk about, in the case of major climate issues, renters' moratoriums, knowing that people have lost wages and can't meet different bills, a renter's court, so all sorts of things that this opportunity here presented tonight will allow us to go down. And also making sure that due to landlord abuse or due to economic issues, that people will not fall victim to houselessness, especially in a climate like ours during the winter months, and especially in an economy that is struggling right now and will continue to struggle in the upcoming regime. I think it's really important for us as a local community to show that working class people are a priority for us, and that, you know, you are not beholden to corporate leaders, corporate interests. And a lot of different people have come up here today to say solution A needs to be addressed, solution B needs to be addressed. I would like to see City Council or the mayor or any elected representative next year advocate more loudly about these corporate entities in our cities that don't pay taxes, some of whom barely pay pilots, funding the programs that we see that we have a need for in the community, be it public parks, be it a right to counsel, be it all the things that the public also actually has an answer for. We actually don't need to look to you for the answers. The community knows what they need. It's a matter of y'all working collaboratively with us to make those things real and holding our corporate entities accountable to funding those things and not having our taxes go up to pay for the things that we need in our community. And lastly, I just want to talk about the situation with the life lost yesterday. We know that poverty is a root cause of crime and other circumstances. Until we're really able to address renters' issues, until we're able to address educational funding, until we're able to better fund our community centers, youth programs, and other things, our youth are going to continue to fall victim to these traps. And people are going to continue to lose family members, and we'll lose our future. We don't know what these youth could have became because we have not invested in them. So again, this is just me saying that this Bill of Rights is really important. I hope that it passes today. I hope it passes in the second reading, and I hope that it opens up a way for us to continue to talk about renters' interests. And like I said very clearly, I hope corporate entities will be held more accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Paige Bosniak. I live in the city of Erie, and I'm here tonight first to ask for everyone's support for the Renter Bill of Rights. I won't repeat everything that was said. I agree with all of it. Safe housing is essential to physical health, to a person's ability to be employed, and to the safety aspects that everyone else has mentioned. The main focus I wanted to speak to tonight was the need for Erie City to develop a comprehensive plan for how we're going to manage snow and future weather events. I think what we saw at the start of the season here is not going to be the first event of its kind. I think with warmer lake temperatures, we're going to see more events like this. And I think developing a plan can be something that we can bring universities together and all of the ideas that exist within this community to make a plan for handling future events. I've done some research. I was in my house. I could not get out of my driveway or anywhere on the road, but I was okay with it. I was warm, my cats were there, and I had time off of work. And during this time, I was able to do some Googling. Some cities actually melt the snow in what they call giant hot tubs with trucks that hold water with temperatures of about 40 degrees. And they are able to melt the snow, filter it, and make it go back into the city's water system. This is technology that was used in New York City and is also used in Montreal. It's especially effective for removing snow in places where there's no place to put the snow, so narrow side streets, places where there is people who rely on street parking. I also think we have an opportunity to use our neighborhood organizations like BEST and our West Bayfront to be hubs for resources during events like this. We could utilize these community institutions to be a hub to lend out things like roof rakes or shovels. We might also consider same-day employment programs to help people, to pay people to help others remove their snow, just the same way we utilize the summer jobs program. This, I think, is an issue we really need to consider. I remember Councilman Keyes suggested this when Buffalo was going through the events that they did, and I think it's high time that we consider it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brenda Schenk. Excuse my voice, I'm getting over pneumonia. I live in Erie, PA. I only have a few things to say today. One, a couple people have come up and talked about the aura in the room and the feeling of being unsafe, attributing it to the red hats that you claim are now the white hoods. Someone was talking about how the city of Erie should be welcoming. Is that only for the blue hats? Because being called the names that you have called us, and Chuck has gone onto Facebook, onto personal pages. No.
Please do not address council individually.
Okay,
This is your first
but-
warning.
But yet
You will be asked
you're
twice
allowing
more before you
people-
are asked to
But
remove,
you're
ma'am.
allowing people to point out specific names of the people out here. So if that is okay, then it is okay for me to say it. He went on to our personal page and called us bitches. Yes. How is that welcoming? How is it okay that we can't call you out, but you allow people to call us out by name? 4 different people called us out by name. Called out my husband. How is that okay? How is you calling us names welcoming? How is it? Would you call that welcoming?
Order, order. You will be asked to be removed, especially considering that you're known to be removing people. when
Would
you offend.
anyone in this room like to be called names? I'm not racist. I have lots of
Order,
friends.
order.
Just because there's a red hat, there's a red hat, there are red hats. Her comment was that if you wear a red hat, you are racist. And if you are a person of color who wears a red hat, then you need to educate yourself because you are embarrassing her. That is, but they're wearing red hats.
Order on both sides.
So how is that right? They're wearing red hats. So you're telling them that they need to educate themselves because they embarrass you? That's exactly what your post said. Red hat. Red hat, red hat, red hat, red hat. They're from Puerto Rico. So does that mean they're stupid because they're wearing a red hat? Because according to your post, that's exactly what you said. So, people want to talk about, this, oh, he's no longer here. He was talking about how, did your comment make us feel that bad? No, but it caused division. You want everyone to come together, but those comments don't allow us to come together. Those comments don't allow us to have a conversation. It's just your way or the highway, and that's all there is to it. There is no trying to have a conversation. And that's shameful.
Have a good night.
Katie White, East Avenue, otherwise known on Facebook, my community as Niggerville, and my Walmart referred to as, okay, I won't repeat what they are. It's really hard. It's really hard to live in a diverse world with people who want your neighbors and friends just to go away because they don't like where they come from and they don't like the color of their skin. And I have to say, I feel really unsafe. And I won't go into why I feel unsafe, but in the last couple of months, things have happened in my neighborhood that made me feel less safe. And I almost didn't come here tonight, and I won't name the person, but when they were gathering, no, I don't do it that way.
Order, please. We have a citizen of the city of Erie speaking. Have a good night.
I wasn't sure if I was going to come, but I knew that it was important for us to find order. And I'm at an age where I'm more concerned about the well-being of our children. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. But this was the appeal that was sent out for folk to come. Don't forget to grab a red hat and show up at the Erie City Council meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Now, here's what bothered me. Let's not give them any more safe places. What does it mean to send
Can I have
out...
order out in the lobby, please?
I want my city council chamber to be a safe place. And when someone posts, Let's not give them any more safe places. And I'm not going to read the rest. The thing is that we have to, for the sake of our children, see each other as people of sacred worth and give everybody a safe place. Give everybody a safe place. The Tenants' Bill of Rights is about giving people a safe place. Mutual respect for each other, whatever hat one is wearing, to see each other as a person of sacred worth is to create safe spaces. So what does it mean? And I've been cyberbullied since defending you. Some of the people cyberbullying me were bots, and some of them were white nationalists. And it makes me frightened, and I had to change my Facebook things. I was called, anyway. I really am grateful for tonight, for the way that you as the council acted with such dignity and respect. I'm grateful for those who sat in the chamber trying to bring this back as a safe place. It did not feel like a safe place on December 4th, and I was watching it online. And I felt bullied and threatened. I didn't feel like this was a place that was safe anymore. So why someone would say, let's not give them any more safe places? I don't understand that. I'd like her to explain what she meant by it. I would be willing to sit down and have a conversation about how Erie can be a sanctuary, a safe space, and not a place where we're afraid to be what we're called to be. Erie has such awesome potential. It really does, and I thank you for, I agree with that person who's a red hat. We have so much more we agree on than what we differ. Anyway, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all you did during the storm. The same thought came to me. It would be nice to know if there were safe spaces for people that are trapped in their neighborhood. When I was a kid, we knew where the shelters were in case there was a bomb. We kids knew where they were, and we knew they were safe spaces. If there were certain places designated in each neighborhood as a safe space, if you've lost electricity, if you've lost heat, because when you all have to go through one thread, like 211 or whatever, is it 211? It gets really complicated. There are, but if we had neighborhood designated hubs where people could make contact and be able to get the help they need in an emergency. These things don't happen very often. I was in Albion after the tornado. I was there for 1 month. And there were certain places that became safe gathering spaces where people could get a meal, they could get a shoulder to cry on, they knew they could find a friend. And I think that if there's some way that we, instead of bomb shelters, human shelters that are designated in the area, that if you do need to borrow a shovel or if you do need to plug in your phone because you have no electricity or whatever. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard?
How you doing? My name is Jeff Uraro, and I live in the city of Erie, and I'm also a landlord. And I support the Bill of Rights, Tenant Bill of Rights. We live in a port city. Our infrastructure is pretty beat up. Our tax base is too high. Our water bills are too high. The jobs don't pay enough. Many landlords, and I'm a very small one. I just have a couple doors. Many landlords today get into real estate ownership as a wealth asset tool. And we have multiple corporations, giant, small, all kinds, that are coming into towns like ours, buying up blocks of housing and pushing up the rents. Now, it's not going to change. It's not going down. We're not going to roll back these prices. There should be maybe some sort of rent ceiling, maybe. They do it in New York City. I know it's a stretch, but we live in a capitalistic society, supply and demand. That's how it works here. If we're going to police these landlords that don't do anything to their buildings, then we have to have a strong code office. And if we have to have a strong code office, we have to have the budget for a strong code office, which we don't. I have housing in Little Italy. I look across the street and I see gutters coming down, soffit fascia laying down here, that, broken windows, all, whatever. We all see it all the time. Citations are put out, they're brought about, nothing's done. How can it be done? So you write a citation to that landlord. Fix your property. There's no teeth behind it. They don't do anything. Nobody comes out to fix it. Nobody comes out to cut the grass. The window's broken, the gutter's hanging there. The neighborhood looks like crap, continues to look like crap. Then, naturally, we have people that can't afford housing, so they gravitate to where it might be a little bit cheaper, all right? And some of them are, is that it? I speak 5 minutes that fast?
No.
Was that 5 minutes?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So anyways, you have the poorer population moving into the areas that the rent might be a little bit more affordable. Again, our housing stock's poor. How we change that, it's going to take a long road, a long stretch, and my wife and I, we travel through the tri-state area, Warren, Ohio, Franklin, Pennsylvania, Oil City, Titusville, Tionesta. Some of these problems are just part of the aging of our community. How we win this battle, I'm not sure. Can we keep landlords accountable? I hope so. But it's going to take lots of cash to throw at this. And those are my last words. So thank you for all what you do. I live downtown on 7th Street. We got bogged down by the snow, but we made it. Right there is Lake Erie. We live in a beautiful spot. The city of Erie's trying. They're trying hard. There's a lot of young people that are here that are going to stay here. This is their home. They want to live here. We've seen the changes. We can make it work, but we got to stand together. Somebody said no hat colors, no hat this, no hat that. I agree with that. All we got to do is be proud of ourselves, and then we will win this battle. We can do it. Let's come together. Let's win this. Thank you.
Madam President? Oh, she's not here. I'd like to thank the folks for being here. I don't know if anybody told you that we're 7-0 passing this thing. It was good to get all the information from you. It was wonderful. But I think I can speak for the rest of the folks. We think it's something that really is needed, and we fought for it. And Ty and everybody else did a great job. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, Councilmember Witherspoon? Hold on, before we get in, is there anyone else from the audience who would like to be heard for citizens to be heard tonight? Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight?
I would like to say something.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Really quick about the life that was lost yesterday. I drive down Liberty every day to go to work down Liberty, and I work right on Peach Street. And as I was coming home yesterday, because I got to leave early a little bit, there were police cars everywhere, and I knew in my heart that something bad had happened. So, I mean, all I could do at that point is just pray for the families and pray for the victims. And we got to stop having victims in our city. We got to do something. We got to save our children. We got to do something as a community and come together and save those kids. So, everybody watch out for your neighbors, watch out for your kids. Talk to their parents, let them know what their kids are up to.
Thank you for speaking. Can you just state your name and the
Oh,
municipality?
I'm so sorry. My name is Pam Uraro. I live on 7th Street here in Erie.
Thank you so much for
Thank
speaking.
you. Thank you.
Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight? Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight?
She only asked the question 3 times and that's it.
Right before.
My name is Bethany, and I'm a lifetime resident of Erie. I look at Katie, and Katie is like I am. We're 3/4 of the way through our lives. We're not doing anything now that we're not doing for our children. Okay? I was just telling a young woman back there that I can remember a time when we had a bar or a grocery store on every corner. And I did not come from a rich family. I came from a working class family, and what they did is they put up tabs for people at their grocery stores. And I'll pay you when I get my check in. And they believed them. And yeah, they go back there and pay. I'm looking at Ed Brzezinski. I don't mean to call out names. I just was thinking about childhood friends. And not him, but I was thinking Tony. I don't know if you're related to Tony. But I knew Tony. But I was thinking also about the council and some of the young people here now that are stepping up to the plate to do this. You know, that's a big deal. You know, I'm listening to all the issues that people have. From leaf collection to snow plowing to young people that need our attention. Of course, when I think of leaves, I think of saving butterflies, and I just chop mine up. I just cut them up and let them lay there for the butterflies and the bees so they can live. That's the other thing. We have to learn to live. I'm going to tell you, we have to learn to live together. I guess I was thinking about my great-grandmother, who's Cherokee. Cherokee from Spruce Pine, North Carolina. She went to Waiteville, West Virginia, a little town. But I was thinking that a lot was taken from her, and everybody had a brighter idea to take their traditions, take their dress, their dance, their clothes, their kids. It's not a great idea to take away. Like some man said, you just don't take away, you have to add to. And I guess the other thing is, the only other thing I have to say is, if you do not breathe air and you do not bleed red blood, please stand up and we will try to find your people. Okay? We're all the same. So we have to kind of lift each other up and stop bringing each other down. So that's all I have to say today. Thank you all.
Have a good night. All righty. Are there any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight?
My name is Kennedy Horton from Erie, Pennsylvania. I wanted to come down here like more prepared, but in light of, I guess, yesterday's news, I thought that my issue was pretty trivial, life loss, and I know people are like really riled up and stuff, but it came to my attention that our city, I guess we ticket on Juneteenth, which is a federally, I guess, recognized Independence Day, and I've had talks with the mayor, and he's like years ago, nice to see you. He spoke to me about wanting to improve, I guess, the welcomeness. I see that on people's minds. And when I noticed that we ticket on Independence Day that is specific to some people, and we don't ticket on Independence Day that is kind of like, I guess, covers everybody, blanketed, it kind of has discrepancy in how we look at our neighbors. When one of our neighbors is celebrating something and another neighbor, doesn't think that it cares because the government doesn't think that it cares, or, maybe it was just an oversight, it's new. So I want to really come down here and, I guess, talk to somebody about getting that added to be a municipal holiday. I think that's how the ticketing officer explained it to me. So I don't really know the process of getting that done, but I wanted to bring it to somebody's attention. And I did go look at the Erie Parking Authority website. There are 10 days that they don't ticket on, 7 of which are federal holidays. There are only 11 federal holidays. So I don't think it's anything that was done, I guess, intentionally, but just those little oversights would help us recognize our neighbors as, I guess, more of a citizen. When we brush things off and treat people as second class, when something major happens, we only have one option for them. And it's really not the positive option. Usually it's, like, let's get this out the way instead of let's look at this. And I'm sure in the next few days, you guys will all hear about how much more money our law enforcement needs or stuff like that, instead of maybe some programs that will lead these kids into not having guns or feeling like they need to walk around with guns, or, maybe some of that money that does get distributed for programs could go into, I guess, teaching kids conflict resolution skills, opposed to, giving them more opportunity to be locked up. Not saying that people don't need to get locked up, everything can't be, all hunky-dory all the time. But, if we start, I guess, paying attention to the little things like ticketing on Juneteenth, then we could pay attention to, I guess, stuff that would bring us together, opposed to, more stuff that divides us, and we have an influx of things that divide us already. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you for speaking tonight. Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight? Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight? For the good of the order, do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard tonight? I'm not hearing or seeing none, so we will move on. Lori. Oh, go ahead, Mel. Sorry, what were you going to say when we were mentioning the tenant bill of rights?
Mr., I think his name was Deontay, gentleman.
Mr. Cooley?
Cooley. Well, if anyone know how to get a hold of him, I would like to meet with him and the young men who came down with them that wanted to speak. I would like to meet with them as soon as possible.
I got his number.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, he's right there. He's leaving.
What was that? Oh, yeah. He heard you wanted to meet with him, now he left. No, just kidding. That's not why he left. No, he just walked out.
All righty, Lori, we may get to business.
Council file number 16482, official ordinance 68, 2024. An ordinance amending codified ordinances of the City of Erie Sewers and Water, Article 933, Sewer Rentals, Section 93302A. Sponsored by Ms. Flores, seconded by Member Titus, that council file ordinance bill number 16482, and now known as official file ordinance 68, 2024, be finally passed by City Council as amended. Members.
Discussion. Hey, just to give an update, this has been amended since last reading. If this is one of those things that I think people, it's a wallet issue for them. Currently, the sewer rate is 3.74 per CCF, and then there's discounts once you get to 5,000 CCF. The median household residency uses 52, so when you get a discount to 5,000, you can see how hard that would be for any of us to actually be impacted by. Those discounts have been removed. So instead of there being discounts at the higher rates and us going from a 3.74 up to a $4 per CCF, we were able to hold it by getting rid of the discounts on the very high usage, which it all goes the same place, and it all goes the same pipes. There's not much bulk rate issues there. So by doing the same, a flat rate for different tiers, residents won't see a $4 per CCF rate as first advertised when it was brought up. It'll only go up to 3.9. So it's only going to be about a 4% increase on sewer. And that was something that's been amended since last time we did this. I think we even tabled it once. So this is a benefit to the residents that everyone on council fought through to make sure we got it done right.
Any other discussion? Voting on the ordinance, members Brzezinski.
No.
Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Ordinance passes. Did I say him? City Council passed official file ordinance 68, 2024, as amended by yeas 6, nays 1. Council file number 16483, official ordinance 69, 2024, an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 9, Utilities and Public Service Code, Title 7, Other Public Services, Article 951, Residential Refuse, Section 95109, Garbage and Refuse Collection Fee, increasing the quarterly collection fee from $287.60 per year to $306.62 per year. The annual collection fee shall be assessed against each dwelling unit and billed on a quarterly basis. Sponsored by Councilmember Troop, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. The Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16483, and now known as Official File Ordinance 69, 2024, be finally passed by City Council as amended.
Discussion. Sorry. I won't do this for all of them, but for those of you that are interested in how the business of all this works. This was originally proposed as a $24 increase to refuse, which is necessary so that we're not deferring maintenance and so that everyone's compensated. Because the job market's been strong, it's been hard to get people into those part-time jobs. They asked for 2 full-time equivalencies, especially after the snowstorm. It was very nice to have 2 more positions of people that can drive snowplows. We did get that reduced from a $24 increase to a $20 increase. Refuse is something that's only paid by residents, whereas taxes are paid by residents and commercial properties, whereas wastewater is paid by, and stormwater are paid by residents, commercial, and tax-exempt companies. So we were able to defer some of the costs from the refuse department, which is only paid by residents, over to stormwater, which is paid for by also tax-exempt entities, to the benefit of residents. And then we were able to, as the new employment had brought on, there wasn't a reduction to the seasonal staff, which seemed appropriate if they would be replacing the seasonal staff's hours. So with that, we were able to reduce it from a $24 a year increase to a $20 a year increase. Because I'm a family of 4 that lives downtown, and I've got daughters that use a lot of water, and a wife that uses a lot of water, and all of that business. I calculate all these things on my own personal costs. At first, it was proposed at a $54 increase. We were able to get between this and sewer the increase of $54 down to half of that for my family. So City Council was diligent to make sure that we were able to reduce these for the families and the residents as best we could. The administration, especially in the finance department, was Mayor Schember, your department head, Lisa. We were doing a finance meeting at, I can't remember, 5:30 one day or 6:30 one day. And she called me and asked me if I could come in early to keep working on all these things with her. Like, she went straight through, that was a 14-hour day, I think, for her. So really appreciate the administration's staff working hard on this, but that's where the reductions are happening. We kicked around a lot of ideas as to whether recycling needed to be reduced, if it would be bi-weekly or something. Like, at the end of the day, we have to cut services to make this any cheaper. And that was something that it didn't seem that any council really had the stomach to cut back recycling. We looked at some opportunities to divert glass, but at the end of the day, I feel confident about this. So it went down $4.
Any other discussion?
Madam President?
Yes, go ahead,
I'm
Councilmember.
going to be the lone wolf again. With all the money that we have coming in and going out and things like that, hitting the people who are the poorest, in my estimation, is the worst way to do it. I mean, I applaud Mr. Nelson for bringing the fees down a little bit, but we got to find a better way than hitting the people on fixed incomes who are homeowners, because we're going to lose them too. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and I'm going to be a no just because it's in my DNA, I guess. Never forget being poor. That's all I got.
Any other discussion?
I just wanted to comment that after all the explanation and the study that we received about the need for the increases for the next 5 years, it's more so deferred maintenance and infrastructure needs. It's not necessarily salary. It's so that we can be compliant and we don't have to risk our water or anything of that nature that could cause later effects. So for me, because of the need, I'm understanding and the reasoning behind the increases. I know that it's going to hit taxpayers or However, we find ways to make everyone pay instead of the nonprofits as well, just so that we can maintain the needed infrastructure needs for our sewer and our refuge. So this is the first battle that we've had, but I'm pretty sure for the next couple of years, until we reach where we need to be, based off of that study, we will be going back and forth trying to find solutions that we can make the majority happy.
Madam President, as
Yes,
long
go
as we
ahead.
spend more than we bring in, we're never going to get there. That's my point.
Madam President,
Go ahead, Tyler.
one of the things I appreciated about this solution as well, and I stayed pretty quiet during the study sessions, was that there are 2 full-time positions that we moved to, which means that we've now created benefits, and so people who are now going to have these that they're able to bring into their family too. So I am proud that we were able to do that.
Madam President,
Yes, Councilmember Witherspoon? Go ahead.
I basically agree with Councilman Brzezinski, but I also have to look at the work that we put into it, and we are saving something. We did the best we can with what we had, and as Councilman Brzezinski said, there have to be a better way to cut a little more for our citizens. But we did work very, very hard, especially Councilman Nelson did a very good job. I will support it.
Thank you for the compliments.
Anybody else? Voting on the ordinance, Councilmember Brzezinski.
No.
Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council passed official file ordinance 69, 2024, finally as amended by yeas 6, nays 1. Council file number 16484, official ordinance 70, 2024, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $750,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funds are granted from the Pennsylvania DCED local share account for West A Street reconstruction. Sponsored by Councilman Brzezinski, seconded by Councilmember Troop. The Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16484, and now known as Official File Ordinance 70, 2024, be finally passed by City Council. Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 70, 2024 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File Number 16485, Official Ordinance 71, 2024, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $120,380 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funds are granted from the Pennsylvania DCED local share account for 4 Bureau of Code Enforcement vehicles. Sponsored by Councilmember Nelson, seconded by Councilmember Titus, that Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16485, and now known as Official File Ordinance 71, 2024, be finally passed by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 71, 2024 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File Number 16486, Official Ordinance 72, 2024, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $500,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funds are granted from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development local share account for a fire rescue pumper. Sponsored by Councilmember Witherspoon, seconded by Councilmember Schaaf, the Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16486, and now known as Official File Ordinance 72, 2024, be finally passed by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 72, 2024 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File Number 16487, Official Ordinance 73, 2024, An ordinance appropriating the sum of $487,750 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funds are granted from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development local share account for a SWAT armored response vehicle. Sponsored by Councilmember Witherspoon, seconded by Councilmember Schaaf. The council file ordinance bill number 16487, and now known as official file ordinance 73-2024, be finally passed by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council pass official file ordinance 73-2024, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16488, official ordinance 74-2024, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $151,020 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof from the U.S. Department of Energy EEC BG program for door and window replacement at 3 fire stations. Sponsored by Councilmember Witherspoon, seconded by Councilmember Brzezinski. The council file ordinance bill number 16488, and now known as official file ordinance 74-2024, be finally passed by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council pass official file ordinance 74-2024, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16489, official ordinance 75-2024, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,400,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received as a transfer from the City of Erie General Fund and will be utilized in the Urban Core Economic Recovery Revolving Loan Fund for the completion of the Eagles Nest project. Sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. The council file ordinance bill number 16489, and now known as official file ordinance 75-2024, be finally passed by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council pass official file ordinance 75-2024, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16474, official ordinance 76-2024. An ordinance of the City of Erie, County of Erie, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, adopting the general fund and certain other budgets for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025, and ending December 31st, 2025. Sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. The council file ordinance bill number 16474, and now known as official file ordinance 76-2024, be finally passed by City Council as amended. Discussion?
I think particularly for those that are here for the Tenants' Bill of Rights, I want to point out an amendment that was made to the budget last week. One of the code enforcement officers is going to be designated to deal with rental properties specifically. I think that's a big step. I think there's a list of legislation that we've done in the last 2 years that is very significant. It was a suggestion that came through a lot of discussions with the new head of that department, that unauthorized department by ordinance. I'd like to fix that. But a lot of discussion that came through, and then he credits the idea one way, but I say it was his idea. And I think especially with the Tenants' Bill of Rights folks that are here today, they should appreciate knowing that. And then somebody had spoken earlier about how this is a deficit budget and how it's a deficit budget every year of their life. We pass a deficit budget. I mean, there's a transfer from water prepayment if you're nerdy enough to know about that. But that doesn't mean that we actually at the end of the year finish at deficit. Like, we've got about 6 cops I think we need to replace right now, and they probably won't get hired until June. So we're just going to go 6 months without those salaries on the books. There's a bunch of little savings like that. So in the 2023 budget, we did an audit of that. We had budgeted a deficit budget with a transfer from the water prepayment lease, and then we never had to make that transfer. We actually refunded the money, put an extra $2.5 million in pension beyond what we had budgeted, and ended the year with a $5.5 million surplus. So there's a lot of aspects of this that rolls into why we don't have a tax increase this year. If you looked at the projections from previous years, we were expecting to be $4 million, $5 million behind by now, and we aren't because we saved money through those years. Mayor Schumber is assured that we would make it to this point without a tax increase. We still have some money left. We might make it to next year. If you're really tightening those purse strings, I think, as you have the last couple of years that I've seen. So, I'm content to pass this budget, but I wanted to point out those 2 things that I think are relevant to people that are still here and were asking and listening. about some things.
Any other discussion? Members voting on the ordinance, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council pass official file ordinance 76, 2024 as amended, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file number 16475, official ordinance 77, 2024, an ordinance fixing the tax rate for all city purposes for the fiscal year 2025, beginning January 1st, 2025, and ending December 31st, 2025. This keeps the millage at the rate of 13.12 mils. Sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. The Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16475, and now known as Official File Ordinance 77, 2024, be finally passed by City Council as amended. Oh, that's not amended. Council members Brzezinski.
Wait, discussion.
It's not amended.
Hey, since there's been some comments said today, I want to thank Mayor Schember for getting Mo, Jasmine, and I all through our first term on council without ever having to raise taxes. As many people that spoke out in the last couple months as to wanting to get rid of Councilwoman Flores, and eventually, as I engaged the conversations, a lot of people wanting to get rid of me. You make it easy to stick around if we don't raise taxes our entire time on council.
That's
so
right.
thank you for that.
Thank you, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council passed official file ordinance 77, 2024, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council File Number 16490, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,026.53 to be received as program income generated in the Pennsylvania Housing Affordability and Rehabilitation Enhancement Fund, also known as FAIR. The program income will be utilized to provide grants to low and moderate income owner occupants for repairs or improvements to their homes. Sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf. Seconded by Councilmember Troop. The Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16490 having been read is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16490 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16491. An ordinance amending and supplementing the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, namely Article 354, rental housing, specifically to amend and/or add sections that establish the rights and obligations of the owners and the occupants of rental housing in the City of Erie. In particular, the rights under federal, state, and local laws that apply to the landlord-tenant relationship. Sponsored by Councilmember Titus, seconded by Councilmember Schaaf. The Council File Ordinance Number 16491, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Discussion?
Discussion, yeah, Madam President. I just want to take a minute to, there's been a lot of discussion over it for several months, but this is something that was put into motion before I was elected to council, and there was a lot of community advocates who've put in a lot of diligent work into this, and so I want to take a moment. It's an honor to get to help carry this over the finish line, but I certainly didn't start this marathon, and I thank you to everybody on council who's been open to a lot of the discussions that we've had, back and forth. And so I'm just grateful that we're at this point tonight.
Everyone, right? Any other discussion?
I agree with what Tyler Titus said. Thank you.
Sorry, I called on her. I thought she'd have more to say than that.
I'll make a comment as someone who is a renter and has advocated for renters' rights and renters' needs. I'm very happy to see that we're continuing to move forward. Last year we passed the first bill that I feel like really made renters feel valid and heard in their needs. And I know that this bill that we're currently passing is just state law that we're legislating on the local level so that it's a quick handout for landlords to be able to give to their tenant at signing of the lease, but also be able to translate it in multiple languages, because we do have a big language access issue in our community. And if you don't know, then you just think that you're stuck or you have no rights or no avenues. So this is just definitely going to help move us forward in the needs of our renters, since a good portion of our population are renters currently in our community. Thank you.
I'd like to say Tyler was Council Member Titus was very correct in talking about the length that this went. A lot of this was discussed in the ordinance, the update to 354 that occurred before, when we added protections for domestic abuse survivors, retaliation, and for to extend the notice given to tenants in the case of rental increase. Former Councilman Faulkner really drove that, along with Councilman Flores. And a lot of this stuff that is in today's ordinance is stuff that we actually set aside to make it cleaner a year and a half ago because of the redundancies of these being state, federal, and municipal laws in existence. So big hats off to her in the way this was seen through organized support. I would also suggest, as the organized support has been so much more visible for evening meetings than day meetings, maybe we ought to pass this. We have a meeting on the 8th, which is when we would do our final passing of this. Just 1 week later would be an evening meeting so that you could come out and see it all the way through and celebrate with us together. I'm not saying this is not to discount the urgency, but it's a week. And I'd like you guys to be able to celebrate with us. I think it'd be nice to have it on the 15th.
Madam President, I just want to say to you, because I know whenever we ran for office together, the first thing I ever heard you say was renting stuff. So, and you've always been for renters in the city. So, got to give you that credit, because you've been pushing this the whole time you've been on. So,
thank you,
you.
Councilmember Troop. I appreciate the recognition, but I know that my situation in the city of being a renter and living in uninhabitable renting units has definitely driven a lot more community members to speak up in their needs, because unless you're addressing them or talking about the issues, people kind of just don't do much about it, unfortunately. So I'm happy that we are moving towards the right direction for our community members. Thank you.
Okay, voting. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16491 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading.
Thank you.
So the 22nd, we're going to do the second and the fourth
Yeah,
ones?
we've already moved the meetings for January.
Yeah, I didn't
as
realize
of
we did it for the
October.
second one, too.
Sorry.
We just moved the first one, right?
No, we're doing the second one, too. 8th and the 22nd.
22nd, all right.
Do you want to tell them that?
Just for clarification, because of the meeting of January falling on the 1st, we did move both of January's meetings in the month of January. The first meeting of January is going to be on the 8th, and that is our AM meeting, and then the PM meeting is going to be January 22nd, correct? Correct. And that will be at 6:30 here in Chambers. So those of you who would like to come in support of the Tenant Bill of Rights and see it passed, that will be the day, the 22nd.
No.
But you don't have to come and talk again.
You
We
can,
just passed the first reading.
yeah, but we're moving that, Chuck just didn't.
I suggested it. We could talk about it later. I was just doing that off the cuff.
Okay. I just want people to be able to plan with the holiday coming up.
Ask them if they want to be here for the final reading. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
I'll touch base with everybody.
We will touch base with everybody after the holiday of Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, Madam President, this takes us to new business.
Motion to move the balance.
Second.
Thank you, team. Any separations?
8.
Number 8. Lori, did you get number 8?
I think number
8.
2.
2. Any other separations besides 2 and 8?
I'll separate 9 just so I can make a comment.
Any other separations? Okay, moving the balance of the agenda, Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, and Flores. Resolution passes 7-0. Reading the first separation, number 2, resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie, the Enterprise Zone Loan Review Committee approval of the following loan be formally ratified. The Eagles Nest Leadership Corporation, $1,400,000 and a term of 18 months. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson and Councilmember Troop. Discussion?
Madam President?
Go ahead.
Thanks to Mr. Witherspoon, we were able to do this. My old protege spoke out and said that we have to do things in the city. This is not a giveaway, this is a loan, and we're doing something for the Lower East Side, for those kids. Eagles Nest is a beautiful, beautiful place. Do you know the third graders over there can recite the preamble? I can't remember all those words. But that's the kind of thing that's going on over at that school. And the building that we're talking about is going to be a community foundation type building. It's going to be used probably 7 days a week and a lot of evenings. We can have everything from volleyball tournaments to wrestling mats, the whole thing. It's a tribute to what we were talking about. We're using our revolving fund set up by the mayor and Chris Groner, and he's going to pay it back in 18 months or I'm going to sell his house. We're going to get it done. I just want to let folks know that we are doing things with the money that the folks up there in the office are working on. We're loaning money out, but we're getting money back from the money that we've loaned. And this one here is just a top-notch thing to happen for the Lower East Side especially. Thank you.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilmember Shaw.
Knowing Bishop Rock the way I do, I don't believe that he's going to have a closed-door society building. That's all going to be private. I believe that it would be beneficial to the entire neighborhood community area where there will be, like Ed had mentioned, various events. And I believe that the neighborhood, the community will overall benefit from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment?
Yes,
Go
thank you,
ahead.
Madam President. I can assure you, it will be open to the entire city. There will be specific programs that will take place. We're looking at starting a gymnastic program as well in that neighborhood that does not exist. We're talking about a mentoring program using recreation to draw our young men and young ladies into a design program. We have Mr. Robertson, who's a retired teacher from the old academy, and Mr. Johnny Johnson, retired teacher, designing the recreation program for the schools. So it's not throw a basketball out and go play. It's going to be a lot of education going on in that facility. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, members Brzezinski,
Yes.
Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. We're looking at number 8. Sponsored by Councilmember Nelson, seconded by Councilmember Schaaf, that Erie City Council member Chuck Nelson appoints Bruce Arkwright of 953 West 8th Street to the Erie City the Erie City Sewer Authority for a 5-year term expiring the first Monday of January 2030. Discussion?
I just wanted to thank Bruce for being willing to serve in that capacity. I've had a couple appointments to that board now, and we've actually had a couple not work out for me. So I'm really depending on you on that. We've got a lot of systems and engineering and construction background people on there right now. They told me they were looking for someone that was environmentally minded. I'd reached out to a couple people that would be suitable in that regard. Bruce is a member of the Sierra Club and has a strong passion for the environment. By trade, he's an accountant, so that's always a practical thing to have that finance background going over the contracts. So I just want to thank Bruce for being willing to serve. He's also a faithful member of the Democratic Committee and a neighbor, and someone that I look forward to seeing at those meetings. Thank you. And that's one of the meetings they give a free lunch. It's
Madam
that one,
President?
the airport, there's a couple.
I can't believe Mr. Nelson is bringing up such an old person. I graduated with Bruce, and he's one heck of a guy. Very good guy.
Wait, you graduated with him? You're that old?
He just looks a lot older.
I'm voting against it now.
Hey, Bruiser.
Any other discussion?
Well done, Chuck.
Voting on the resolution, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. We're moving to number 9, sponsored by Councilmember Nelson, seconded by Councilmember Titus, that Erie City Council, upon receiving a communication from the City Planning Commission recommending approval and adoption, and that the plan meets the needs of the city and fulfills the goals of the city's comprehensive plan, Erie Refocused, and the accompanying 5-year action plan, the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network 2024 Strategic Actions and Investments Plan be hereby approved.
I just wanted to have a quick discussion. I'm always happy to see when we have resolutions, working collaboratively with organizations who are doing work and outreach in our community. It shows that we're listening, and it shows that we're making an effort to build relationships with these organizations that are doing the work within our community to make Erie City better for all. So I just wanted to say that, the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network, they do great work in our community. They are a great organization that are teaching and advocating for the needs of our most vulnerable, and I am very happy to see that the city continues to adapt these organizations' plans to collaboratively work together to make Erie great. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. Council President, we have a waive rules. It is sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf, seconded by Councilmember Brzezinski, that Erie City Council approve bills for payment specifically incurred during the snow emergency declared 11/29/2024 to the vendors, and the total is $316,884. Voting to waive the rules. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Waive the rules passes. Voting on the resolution, unless there's a discussion.
Madam President, I am glad that we are able to do this at this time so that, business will go on smoothly and our bills get paid. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to mention that I'm happy that we had the money in our budget to cover our need. I know the last 2 years we were lucky enough to have savings due to our lack of snow, but as people have mentioned, Erie gets a lot of snow, so we should always be ready for that one big snowstorm that could blow our budget. Lisa mentions it to us constantly. So I just think that we need to be grateful and thankful that it wasn't enough to throw everything out of whack. So I just hope that the next few weeks into the next couple months are a little bit easier on our public works and our police and everybody who's done a great job in our city to make sure that our roads and everything are safe for us to get to and from. People mentioned the loss of wages, and it's unfortunate to not be able to get to work, but it's always a moment of reflection that we're safe, we're warm, and we're in the comforts of our home and these needs, and we need to be grateful that we have that opportunity. Because I know during that time we had a lot of unhoused community members who didn't have the public library to go to, and they didn't have the shelters keeping them warm. So I know the upper room did a great job at providing a service to those most vulnerable. So during our time of need, we need to be reflecting on those who don't have very much. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. This takes us to committee reports.
Alrighty, I normally start from either end, so this time we're going to go with Councilmember Witherspoon. I know you've been putting in a lot of work at the City Hall the last few weeks, so let's hear about it.
Well, being down here all day, watching department heads do their job, I didn't bother them, I just observed them. They're doing a great job, and special thanks to Chris Groner for making many situations very easy to deal with. He helped us tremendously. Congratulations to Police Chief. I received his report, as all of us have, and they are busy. They are busy taking hundreds of calls from A to Z, and they're responding to them. So, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Tyler Titus.
So I'll start with, there's been a lot of meetings around the study session we had with the Erie Zoo and the Events Authority. I'm feeling pretty confident that within the next few weeks that we're going to have a solid proposal and an established plan here to kind of move this forward. We'll keep meeting and we'll keep trying to figure this out so that we can ensure the zoo remains a vital community asset here. The Erie Parking Authority had their meeting on December 10th. The director shared out a lot of the collaboration that happened around with the city, Gannon University in particular, and other partners to address the snow removal from the parking garages, including opening up the parking garages to try to get some people who are parking on the side of the streets in the garages for free so that they could get the snow removed. Their next meeting is on January 14th. EMTA met on the 16th. They had a quorum present, so they were able to approve stuff that had carried over from October and November. And they are, I'm going to say the name incorrectly, and I'm going to try, but they are in the initial stages of working with Montuic Renewables. That's a Pittsburgh-based organization whose mission is to advance responsible renewable energy projects that enhance sustainability. So when I get more information on that, we're going to be forwarded the presentation that happened during that meeting. I'll make sure to share that out and the information that was there. I do want to take pause and acknowledge the recent tragedy that we've had just yesterday, but there have been many that have happened, and the amount of violence that we're still seeing in our community. I think that this is going to call upon all of us to continue to come up with collaborative ways that we address this as council, but with also working with our community organizations and those resources that we have available, and making those resources more available to those community organizations that need them. And then in closing, I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season. And again, may our hearts remain open to gratitude, and may we embrace the new year with some humility, hope, and the spirit of possibility.
Thank you.
Madam President, just want to start off by talking about the tragedy that happened yesterday. As an educator, I've been working in the Erie School District for 28 years now, and anytime something like this happens, we have to deal with it directly. Kids crying, teachers crying. We dealt with all that today. Rooms set up for kids to grieve. They know they know all these kids when this stuff happens. So, just pray for the teachers, for the kids, and all the parents and everybody, our community, just our community as a whole. Also for, there's a lot of parents who lose kids not necessarily in violent situations. My mother, for example, lost my oldest sibling was 18 when she passed away. So my family has dealt with that before. We still ask why. It was 40 years ago. It's something that a parent would never get over. So it's just, let's just pray for everybody in that situation. I know people complain about the police officers, but police officers did a great job yesterday in that situation. People complain about, oh, police this, police that. Police helped to catch people yesterday. People complain about ShotSpotter. When I read the paper, I see ShotSpotter helping to solve crimes. So I also want to thank the streets workers. I can't thank them enough because I remember, during that snowstorm riding across Buffalo Road from Broad Street to Franklin Avenue, took me 45 minutes to one day just because it was so slow. Mm-hmm. The very next day, I did a video. It took me less than 5 minutes because of the work they did. So you got to congratulate them again. Of course, we heard 1,000 times tonight. Very important, the Tenant Bill of Rights. But I also find it interesting that 3 people tonight who were from out of town, weren't from Erie, described Erie as a beautiful place to live. As we Erie people just complain about Erie. But people from out of town were like, I heard somebody else say, what are we adding to it? What are we going to add? I also heard common ground. Common ground. I'm a sports guy, so any team that I've been involved with that didn't have common ground, we always had losing record. Always had losing record. So we can't find common ground. I won't be surprised if the record's a loss. And I just want to say, we do need to think about an emergency plan for, when things happen. You can't predict how that's going to happen, how big it's going to be, but something to think about. And just happy holidays to everybody, and happy New Year to everybody. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson?
Yeah. I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission. I was at their meeting yesterday. They took another look at the 12th Street Reimagined. They actually had a very long meeting talking about all the other things that they were planning for and planning to plan for. They had their consultant in to chat with them about some of the things that were in motion, and then they were talking about some of the funding sources that might be available to the city and where else they can get involved. I was also in an airport authority meeting. I'll tell you, those are way more joyful nowadays. They're just talking about all the new planes and how full they are. Those are easy meetings to go to. We had a person that was appointed by Jessica Ring back 12 years ago, apparently, or maybe 15 years ago, maybe, because he's term limited now. And his term expired as president, Dan Gianelli, and so he is leaving the board there. We made his appointment to replace him last month, but he sure was greeted fondly by all of his colleagues after 15 years of serving on that board. So if anyone's looking for a board from, he lives in Harbor Creek now, so we got to get their county councilman out there, Chris Drexel, to appoint him to something. So anyways, so those were the 2 ones I went to. I want to address some of the things that were said during Citizens to be Heard. Art, and I don't, some of them I just have descriptions. I didn't get everyone's first and last names. Art talked about, watching out for a neighbor, that all of us know someone. And I'm going to be frank, that's not the case. There's a lot of people that are in very much isolation, and they don't know someone that is at risk due to immigration issues. They don't know someone in the LGBT community. There are people that are more isolated. And I think you can see that in the empathy and compassion that comes out of people when they are in isolation or in a homogenous unit. There is less empathy. And I think that's reflected over and over again in our society as groups draw together into their homogenous units. And that goes for a lot of different groups here. There was she gave her description, and I didn't ever call her name. She was a 34-year-old, oh no, I already talked about that we had the budget surplus. Devin, you're still here. Thanks for sticking around. You're my neighbor. I live on 9th Street, just a couple blocks away from you. I'd love to catch me afterwards. I'd like to talk about it, especially if someone's nerdy enough to go through the budget this season and try to find issues. I'd love to talk to you about the process, and we have a municipal election coming up in the spring. Matt Texter talked about engaging the students. We did that little roadshow thing, and maybe I should talk to the assistant principal about this offline, but it'd be kind of cool to do one of those daytime ones as like an assembly at the high schools.
I think the assistant principal already told you that we should do something like that. I think he already mentioned that before to you.
Okay, I forgot about it. You probably said it back when I was president. I was like, I'm not doing more stuff. At the school. Yeah, I'd be really down for that. That'd be, maybe I wasn't down for it because I was worried about the community center thing last time, but maybe that's the next one.
Can I still one more minute? Yeah. I just want to make sure that I always say we have a lot of great kids in Erie.
Yes, we do.
We have a lot of kids that do the right thing and are doing the right thing. I got to make sure I say something about those kids. Thank you.
Yeah. Kennedy left, but I put a memo on my phone for May, and I've done this every year. We are always the only place that's open downtown on Juneteenth, and I think it's because we forget to cancel work every year. So I put a memo on my phone for the last council meeting of May so that we could put a resolution to recognize that holiday this year. I'm always very surprised when I come downtown and see that. It's been a great improvement in this city. I mean, the festival that that's built since you've been the mayor has been wonderful, but that is, I think, an appropriate thing. And there was a woman that came in that spoke about my social media, which most of it was about yours, but I did not call her a name. I actually said flattering things about her because of the way she steps up and defends her husband so quickly. I didn't say mean things about her. I was flat. Usually a wife expects a man to take care of himself.
Is this a committee report, Chuckster?
Well, I'm just addressing the concerns of the people. Usually a wife expects a man to back up himself in that situation, and she's strong. She jumps in there and defends for him. But in the concerns of some of the other people that spoke on those, that's handled in elections. Since so many of them were coming from out of town, you can look up my 2023 committee report, and you can see that sometimes I invest in elections that are outside of Erie City. I invested a few $100 into the county council race in Harbor Creek, and I knocked on a lot of doors for that. So there's, even if you don't live in the city, you can invest in elections in the city. If you really want to get rid of us, go ahead and fund candidates. That's a wonderful thing. It's good democracy. But you don't always have to stay with your own spots there. All right, that's the end of my committee report.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaaf, did you
Thank
want
you,
to speak
Madam
tonight?
President. I think the best gift that we can give each other as a community this season of giving is the gift of our time. And I want to thank everyone who goes above and beyond in giving of their time and volunteering. I remember meeting the woman at the Booker T. Washington Center who has the group that goes to Harrisburg every year, and how they meet at the Booker T after school. There's a lot of people and organizations that are helpers. The PALS is at an all-time high of being at, I think, 9 different schools and having hundreds of kids involved. And at their last year's dinner, they had the children, or not the children, but the students involved in the PALS program speak and said how important they felt a great connection with the people that are all part of that program. I as a mother on a limited income, used the centers myself. My daughter went to the ballet at the Martin Luther King Center. It was less expensive as going to, like, these establishments that cost a lot of money. I think the city of Erie does a great job with their recreational guide in the summertime, and people should use that. It has arts and sports and plays, and you can use that as your recreational activity for your children. My parents were big on public events. We attended the public library faithfully throughout the entire year. And our library system is so much expanded from the time when I was a kid. You can get fishing poles for free from the public library because of the Sons of Lake Erie, and that there's so many different free things that you can borrow from the library. They have movies you can go to for free, and the activities as far as the reading, the literacy. We have a lot of free activities, festivals in the summertime that I would be proud to take my children to and be part of. If you are a music, and studies have shown how much music can play in your life. The shooting that happened is terrible. It's not just our community. There was that Wisconsin shooting. It is a national crisis, and we do have to do something about it. And we do have to look beyond just ourselves. Unfortunately, this storm came really fast, and people do have to abide by, our parking situation. Where Chuck Nelson lives, it's an older part, and the streets were made very narrow because there wasn't cars that much back in the day. People did more walking, and so like Harbor Creek and Mill Creek that were developed later on, their streets are more rural centered than our downtown historic neighborhoods. So we have, we're very unique. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who goes above and beyond. I went to the Erie Downtown Partnerships lighting up the night for the tree lighting, and I have friends that went to Galveston, Texas for Dickens reimagined type of event where you dress up in the period costume, and I think that's wonderful. But we had our own Charles Dickens event right here in the city of Erie, and I want to thank Mayor Joe for being there and all the other organizations that were a part of that. That was a very meaningful night to me and the people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brzezinski?
Yeah. Over the past weekend, we went to the Gertrude Barber Center ball at the Civic Center. On Monday, Mr. Pine, the director, had a thank you dinner for the folks that worked for him all year round. And those are the people I want to talk about tonight. Those are the people, those are the heroes. Nobody, when a thing goes, any event goes beautifully, nobody notices. When there's one mistake, everybody points it out. These folks work at venues all over the place, and they're going to be taking on even more. And they do it with a smile, and they do it well. And that, I guess that's a tribute to Mr. Pine, too. But I don't want to toot his horn. I want to talk about those people that are there, from Zamboni drivers right? Mrs. Schaaf's husband drives a Zamboni for the Otters. All these people are really well informed about their jobs, how to do their jobs, and they do it. And I'm very proud of them. We have a board meeting tomorrow, so I don't have any kind of reports like that. But a good friend of mine passed away. He was a psychologist, and he used to have a placard on his wall that he gave to me before when he was closing up his practice. And it says, "A day without laughter is a wasted day." I kind of live by that mantra. And I think anybody who knows me, I use levity, but I don't think anybody doubts the seriousness that I have about what we're doing here. I just think it's a whole lot easier to walk around with a little bit of a smile on our face than a frown. And with that closing, we'll go back to Dickens and say the same things that he said at the end of his little story. God bless us, everyone. Have a good holiday and a safe holiday, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I will give my committee report. As anyone who pays attention to local politics know, that at the beginning of the year, we will transition into the new presidency and the new VP. So today was the last night of me being president, and I am so happy that we were able to conduct ourselves as adults in chambers, a house of legislation, a house to get business done, so we were able to do that. I also would like to, say I'm very happy with the Tenant Bill of Rights that was able to pass, and in 2 weeks, we will be starting the process of getting that finalized. I also wanted to mention that it was great to see the city of Erie actually showing up in chambers. It was a great show of actual city residents who live and breathe Erie City here, speaking on the needs of our community. I'm happy that they brought up the lack of what they felt was response for the weather storm that we received, but as everyone knows, the behind the scenes goes on and things take time, especially with odd even parking, people abandoning cars throughout the city. It took us a little longer than we anticipated, but when we all work together, we can get things done in a timely manner, which comes to us doing our part. So let's just continue to make sure that in the winter months we're doing our part, we're parking where we need to, we're shoveling our pathways for our postal service workers and our delivery service workers to get to our mailboxes and our front doors, but that we're also being conscientious of the fact that during the seasons of celebration, we have a lot of families that are mourning. We have a lot of families that experience loss around this time, and due to the tragedy that occurred yesterday, we have a new family, well, 2 new families that are going to be experiencing loss, the one that is fighting for his life, but also the one who is no longer with us. But along with that, we have the families that the young people that were involved in this will be experiencing as well. So there's a lot of young people and young minds that are going to be experiencing trauma the next few weeks, and we need to be very aware of that. But we also need to be aware that as a whole, and as the City of Erie community, we can do more for our young people. I've always spoken up on the need of us keeping our young people busy, giving them something to do. I grew up with a bunch of brothers who, given the opportunity, they did get in trouble. But it's not because they didn't have a mother at home or a stepfather at home telling them to do right. They're going to look for trouble and they're going to find it. So we need to have young people in our community who are leaders, who are mentors, who are pouring into these young minds due to the fact that sometimes, as the community member Cooley had mentioned, there's a bunch of parents who don't know how to be parents. I grew up with a bunch of adults who didn't know how to be adults, and they're still learning to today. So it's shocking that we expect these young people to look around at the examples that they're given and do differently. I grew up wanting to be nothing like the people around me, and I am nothing like the people I grew up with, and I'm very proud of that. But I also know that not enough young people can make those distinctions and those choices to better themselves. So I'm hopeful that, with us seeing younger and younger people passing away before their potential starts, we can start doing more for the young people that will one day lead our community. Because without the youth, we have nothing. And if the young people don't see us supporting them, they're not going to be giving much opportunity or faith in the leaders that are currently here. to, guide them to the future. So I just wanted to say thank you for a great year, council. We did great work. And next year is going to be another great year because the city of Erie needs it and our residents still expect us to continue on. Thank you. Does the solicitors have a report?
No report.
Does the mayor?
Yeah, I'm going to be very brief, though, too, because this is way past my bedtime normally. But first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about the PAL program, the Police Athletic League. I think you all know that. That started about 2 years before I came into office. And at the beginning, there was 5 or 6 officers involved and about 50 students from one school involved. I found out, I got to go around with the police officers for the last week or so, going to all the Erie area schools and meeting with the kids. There's now 24 schools or locations that take part. There's about over 1,600 children that are part of this, and there's about 103 officers of our 140 or so that are participating in it as well. It's really, really good to see. And there was one boy who went through the program back right at the very beginning, who's now in his early 20s, who I believe is going to be hired. He's the first one, and this is kind of a long-term program because these boys, when I go around at Christmas usually with them, I can't say anything. They go around to the kids' homes and they have a Christmas gift for them, and I usually can't get any questions in for about 15 minutes because the kid's so happy to see the police officers and talk. But when I can, I always ask the kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? 40% of those kids, this is mostly on Erie's Lower East Side, 40% of them told me they want to be police every time I've asked. So I'm really, really impressed with that. Also, I want to thank Ed, Kathy, Chuck, Jasmine, Mo, Tyler, and Mel or Spoon. Thank you for your service this year. I've really enjoyed working with you. I look forward to next year as well. So thanks very much to all of you. That's it.
Thank you.
Madam President, before you hit the gavel.
Yes, go ahead.
I would be remiss if I and I was remiss actually in my report to not thank you for what you've done and the history that you made for the city. You have opened doors for young minds and people who you will never know that you've impacted. So I wanted to close the meeting on thanking you for what you've done for the city and the grace in which you've held the space.
We leave that stuff for the next meeting.
Madam President, hold up on that gavel.
Hold the phone.
Just hold up. You just want to get out of that seat too soon.
She is not put on the gavel.
I have to echo Dr. Tyler's statement. You provided very good, positive leadership. And I watched you grow once you sat there. And I can say publicly, as nice as you are, you got a mean streak in you.
I work really hard to be nice.
Oh,
I
boy.
work really hard to be nice, and that concludes
She
the
don't
meeting
have
tonight.
no meeting. She know how to say no.
City Council adjourns at 9:42 p.m. Council members Flores, Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon.